pay more attention because we're going live now. So all that gossip you were passing on to Alex needs to stop. Oh. Yes, you're definitely a woman in drag.
I haven't even started on that. You wait. You won't sleep for a week.
I didn't see. Public gallery. Okay, so we're live, and David, you're first up. Have a seat in front of you there. Get control of that microphone. We have 10 minutes for each speaker, so it's a bit of a balancing act. If you do less than 10 minutes, then you'll open up some time where the councillors might ask you some questions. So, welcome anyway.
My name is David Swan. I'm a resident of Bluff. I looked at the proposals for Esk Place, and as I always do, as a project manager, I kind of am interested in the pros and cons, and then I go to look at the preferred option. And the preferred option makes no sense. If you read the pros and cons of the options, option 2 stands out. It has one con and lots of pros. And look, I'm a project manager. I've been an army officer. I know how to do appreciations. I know how to do an analysis of factors. And when I see something that doesn't make sense, it kind of makes me wonder what other factors aren't actually presented in here that allowed those pros and cons to be weighed very differently to what's in the in this submission. So I've had the good fortune to travel the world. I know great public spaces when I see them. Great public spaces do not have tour buses running through the center of them. Most great public spaces around the world are now pedestrianized, and this public place should be pedestrianized. I'm really sorry if the Distinction Hotel requires more space for tour buses than their selected site allows. But sorry, that isn't a consideration that makes a great public space. This space needs to remain entirely pedestrianized, and I see nothing wrong with option 2. So I think that's really, I won't waste any more of your time. What's wrong with option 2 that has led that not to be the council's preferred option?
So you're not wasting our time. When we had a bit of a straw vote, when we put the initial submission out, we had to sort of show a preferred option, which was option 1. Having said that, there was only a 1 councillor difference in the levels of voting, so there was probably a pretty reasonable even split. So it's good to hear from people about what might tip our mind one way or the other.
Cool.
So the council doesn't have a preferred option just for 1.
Okay.
But we are required to declare that.
Okay, cool.
Tom.
David, did I mishear you when you started at first? I thought you said that option 3 made no sense. Did I miss? You meant option 1 made no sense. Okay, yeah. I misheard you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Option 3 is okay, but I can see it has a lot of issues around private easements and so on. Okay. So option 2 seemed to make perfect sense.
Thank you.
Apologies.
Other questions? Yeah, Darren.
Thanks, David, for your submission. And no, it's not a waste of our time at all. My question is, did you realise that Wagner Place is still technically a road?
Ooh, how can I respond? There were lots of technical roads from a survey perspective around Aotearoa. frankly, whether a road is technically a paper road or a formed road is immaterial. There's a drive, excuse the pun, for pedestrianising city spaces as far as possible, and so if it's a technical matter, I can't understand why that would be a consideration.
Thank you.
Leslie.
Thanks for your submission, David. Just to invite you to expand a little bit more, your absolute preference was for option 2. Would you agree that there could be some even more improvements with option 2?
I think option 2, with the right detailed architecture, with the right detailed design, offers the potential of a world-class public space. I think it's the only one of the 3 options that offers that potential. But I mean, hey, if it's done on the cheap, it'll be as it is today, which is a disappointing public space. So,
Thank you.
Other questions? Oh, I've only just got the one. Part of our push to revitalise the inner city is we've pushed away, I guess, from Wokner and up into S3. You'll have seen that, of course. So what do you see the use? Because I've checked for months on end now how many people are actually loitering, for want of a better words, in and around Wokner Place, and you can count them on one hand that over weeks and weeks and weeks. Everybody tends to come into the thing. So if you're promoting option 2, which is basically to leave it without a road access through, what would you see the future use of it?
So the Distinction Hotel will be a considerable asset to Invercargill, no doubt about that. It is a source of people coming into our city. Those people deserve a walk from the hotel to the core shopping district that is as beautiful as possible. So right there is one sort of future aspiration, to bring the Distinction Hotel. And of course, if the Distinction Hotel hopefully has some great dining and bar options, then that flow, it does extend. But putting a bus route through the middle of it doesn't deliver to that vision.
No,
it obstructs it.
So, given your project management thing, I'll pose you another question. How do you feel about the concept of the opportunity of not having bus access through there, but taking out the clock structure and what have you, which is very tight? And what do you think about the potential for wind tunnelling and stuff like that?
So that's where the detailed design comes in. So first of all, I've got no particular love of the clock, except that it is something that a lot of locals seem to love. So almost in that case, why not refurbish it? Why take it down? But the detailed design is where the placement of trees, placement of other structures will alleviate any wind tunnelling effect, because it's that makes it an unusable space right now.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions, councillors? No, you're relieved. Right on 10 minutes as well, which is great.
Okay.
Brian, wherever you are, welcome.
Yeah, my name's Brian Dunkley. My parents moved here in the early 80s for my dad's job, and they never left. And I grew up to school here, and I've been and gone and moved all over the world, and I actually agree with what he said about public spaces not having tour buses. Spaces. So the first one, my big issue is that the consultation options control the outcome because there's no option to disagree with the options. And all the options for the first part about Wokner Place means that the hotel is having tour buses through. And I don't think there should be tour buses going through there at all. It should be pedestrian. And the issue with the clock is that it's not so much the bells that I care about, because they can be modernised to do bird songs or something, but it's about the clock. Like, they're an amazing piece of mechanical work. and they seem to be disappearing. The bit about the mall is that it's corporate welfare and that you shouldn't do it. And if the mall can stand on its own, float the mall, and then people can buy shares and they can raise their own capital that way to pay off debt. And with the CCTVs, I don't have an issue with CCTV. I'm hesitant about what's done with the information while it's captured. And if facial recognition is used in the CBD, who has access to that information and the flow and effects of that, and how we need to ensure that people are open and aware of that and what's going to happen with that data. That's all I have to say, really.
Okay, so I can probably help you with the latter, which is your CCTV, and just draw your attention that we've recently adopted a very extensive document that's the policy around that. So you just can't walk in off the street, or councillors can't get access to the imagery that comes with CCTV. It's very,
Outside agencies?
well, I mean, you couldn't come in and say, I want to have a look at a piece of that TV shot down the street. I was down there. I mean, there'll be very strict controls around who can access. I can't walk in and just have a look at what's being played out there. Police obviously have access, and some of our key staff will have. But the document is very detailed around privacy rights, how long you retain the information, who has access, how long they have access for. If you get your hands on that document, it'll answer all the questions you need to know about the CCTV.
It's on the website?
Sorry?
It's on the website?
That's a technical question. I'm not sharp with those. Oh, so I'm corrected now. That's one of the things that we're still consulting on. So we haven't finalised it yet. So
Okay.
you'll see that come out. Yep.
Cool.
Yep. Questions, councillors? Oh, hands up, Evelyn.
Kia ora. Thank you for coming and presenting to us. I'm really interested in your comments about the technical and the disappearance of mechanical clocks. Is that something that you have a passion about and an interest in? So can you tell me what is unique about ours that we should know
From
about?
my experience traveling around the country, we're one of the few places with a big mechanical clock that still works like that. I can't think of anywhere else there's a clock like that per se, in like a square area. There's a few of them have got them in the roundabouts like we used to have.
Yes.
Yeah, so having it as a centre point, it's sort of a dying methodology and technology to a degree as well. Like I used to teach, and it's hard to teach kids how to read analog clocks. You know, so because they're not seen and they're not used as useful, whereas they're all being taken away, so they're not being seen.
And as part of what you think we would lose this insight into the mechanics,
Yeah.
the working of it, which is
what makes it
Yeah.
special as well. You can actually look inside of it.
thank you.
Yep.
Leslie.
Thanks, Brian, for your submission. You said on the S Street West Wapna Place matter that there was no change option, but you're obviously saying don't put tour buses through there. So if it's left in its current pedestrian state, would you approve some refreshing of the space?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
And what would you see as being useful things to refresh it?
Integrate modern technology. You can still like park benches that have got they've got solar panels on them to charge phones. So give people a reason to go there and sit there. You've got all these food places opening up with the mall and all that, so get them outside, sitting somewhere with a purpose to go there to charge their phones, because everyone has a phone, free Wi-Fi, some trees and gardens. I'm not an expert in that area.
So would you say at the moment it's not acting as a public square?
It could be a lot better. A lot better. When was it acknowledged? When was it, like, I don't even know, I can't remember when it was built. I remember when the columns were built, but I can't remember when the Wapna Place was built. I may not have been born.
1990.
So, you know.
1990.
Yep.
Not as old as you think. Thank you.
Right.
95.
Was it 1996?
With respect to your CCTV question, who are you worried about having access to it?
Everyone and anyone. It's to do with the
So
fact...
Joe Public.
So Joe Public to a degree, but people that may have reasons that aren't for the official reasons. We see a lot of hacks happening these days. We see that information being held for ransom.
Yeah.
You know, and it's something that people
So it's a security.
It's a
of the
security
system.
issue, and
Yeah.
knowing that if I'm out and about in Invercargill, that information's safe.
Yeah.
Not that I'm doing anything that anyone should want to look at for any reason.
Yeah.
It's just that no one should be able to take that information and then do what they want with it.
Yeah.
Because video manipulation is a huge part of how we get our images, we get our views, and you don't really see the whole video. You see the parts of it people want to show you,
Yeah.
and that can change the opinion of what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That's my issue with it. It's not the fact that you have it because it's important. It's how it's used and used appropriately.
thank you.
That's good. Yeah.
Further questions, councillors? No? No? None at all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks. He's gone. All right, Bob. And I take it you're bringing Liz with you? You're not? Welcome. 10 minutes. This will be a challenge.
It's certainly a challenge. I've got some bits of paper I'd like someone to hand out.
Are they the email graphics?
I think I'll stand up to see if I can make sense of this.
Put your microphone up.
Oh. Mayor Clark, councillors, staff, members of the media and members of the public. My submission submissions ignore the finance for the block and the cameras. And I do not support any of the three the options for S Street West and Wagner Place. Is that better? How's that?
Yep.
That's fine.
Right. In my opinion, they don't provide adequate access for buses, and we do not need play spaces. Wagner Place has seldom been a good community meeting space. Don Street is a better option for community events. On a Friday evening in September, the vehicles were stopped in Don Street and a popular food truck event was held there. There is less wind in Don Street and it doesn't have the noise and pollution from heavy vehicles which Wagner Place has. So my submission begins with a dare to dream and ask you each to be part of a team working with locals to build a good product. Now you've got in front of you, I hope, pile of stuff that, anyway, keeping track of paper is one of my challenges. Anyway, you've got, you've got the must be spare one somewhere here.
Yeah, no, I've got it.
Oh, I'll get those back. Can you give me one?
We've got some spares.
Right,
Some
anyway,
spares
so
down here.
the option one just shows what we were given, and I'm proposing, saying that this is prepared by consultants, but they're not locals, and they propose with a number 5 there that they're going to convert a building into an information place, but as far as I know, that building's now at Aroha, has been for quite a while. And it proposes, you see what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. And then there's a connection into the Tuatara from what is Wagner Place, but it's actually into the reception to go upstairs to the building. So you can actually just go around the corner and go in a door that's already there under a veranda. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. The right of way which someone was keen on for the buses to go in is actually over private land. So that's actually not crash good. And so, yeah, so that's what my plan says. Well, I've looked at the plans. And so the plan that I've drawn and labelled, I've shown some footpaths, I've shown some one-way vehicle paths, and I've shown some, and I'm saying that south of the, or near the pizza place, there's room to sit there still in the sun. There's room to sit outside the toilets on the other side of when the weather's okay. And I think the whole place should be turned into just a normal street. We don't need a play space or expensive paving or other things that is proposed in this. And so I've drawn the Menzies, sorry, the converted Menzies there with a number A on it, with a dotted canopy outside where the bus can park and let people into the hotel. And I'm arguing that if we're being civilised, we welcome people in the front door and we try and keep them warm and welcome. And then I point out that there's a 4-level car park across the road. Now, some people in their submissions think that we were trying to get into the library car park, but there hasn't really been adequate information. Well, it's confusing. There's so much information, I don't know how you guys cope, but that's another whole problem. But anyway, there's a car park over the road, 4 levels for 120 car parks. There's an existing office building north of that, which is going to get converted into apartments and storage. And then I've handwritten a C on there. Out in the in D Street, I've got 3 Cs, which is in fact where the columns are, which I think should be retained. And then there's the D's, the Railway Hotel. The E is the McKillop's building, which is being retained and converted into apartments and storage. F is the existing building converted into apartments and services for hotel patrons. And G is the existing Wachner Place restrooms and accessible toilets, which I believe should be retained. And now I've got to go back to my notes. And so the dream that I'm hoping you guys get part of is that, and tell you for any building, I know a bit about buildings, a welcoming entrance, a sheltered and welcoming entrance is desirable for all buildings. For many people, their first visit to the Distinction Hotel on S Street will be when they get off a bus. Now, it's no surprise, but sometimes in Invercargill, the weather's not good. In my proposal, the bus exit door will be sheltered by the drive under bus cover, and then the adjacent north-facing entry door to the hotel will offer a welcome. Buses are large and need space to turn. My proposed 2-way S Street traffic plan has a simple left turn from D Street into S Street West, and a simple left turn from S Street West onto D Street. The 4 Celtic columns stand out in our flat city and provide a pedestrian connection across the street. The Celtic columns remind us of our Celtic or Scottish heritage, and there's no good reason to remove them. The restrooms should also be retained. They are necessary in a time of need. This need is great if you've been travelling or as we get older. My traffic plan could be completed for a fraction of the cost included in the council's budget. My Dare to Dream asked this council to consider the different options in S Street West, and I look forward to your questions.
Thanks, Sam. God, slow hands up one at a time. Peter, I'll go down the line.
Yes, thank you, Bob. Yes, I agree with you that the pillars should be retained. But one thing I'd like to see there is tubular lighting.
Is this a question?
Yes, it's coming to a
Yeah,
question.
I'll deal with this.
I would like to see that for special occasions and events like Matariki, Christmas, Easter, Chinese New Year, Daffodil Day, etc. You don't understand that?
No,
I'm just asking you
I'm
that.
saying I don't think it should be our public place.
Yep.
And I think Don Street's a better option now, and I think sometime we should do a better one.
I'm talking about
It's never going to be successful there.
I'm talking about the pillars.
Well,
Would you like to see
no,
lighting over that?
no.
Okay. Next question is, in my early day as a young teenager, Lower S Street was open to the public until probably for public thoroughfare for traffic up until about 1986, 87 or something. I used to go down there 3 or 4 times every day of the week going to the New Zealand Rails office dropping off parcels. And it was the most windiest place.
That's what I'm saying. Don't put people there. Are you arguing my case?
It was the most windiest place, and the back corner was second worst.
Why am I putting up with this? You're using it my time.
I'm not here to argue. I'm just telling you what it was
Councillor,
like in those days.
Councillor, hang on, mate. He has the right to say that he's already supported your position. What he's asking for is what questions do you have of him? He doesn't want to comment on what statements you believe should be there.
Since Wachner Place was built the way it is now into a place, there hasn't been any problems with winds that existed prior to the building of Wachner Place.
I don't believe that's true.
100% true. Thank you.
Okay. Next, Tom, will you?
Awesome question.
Yeah. I'm getting there, Trish.
Don't have to laugh, Alex. You done
So-
the same 2 weeks ago.
No, we don't need
Peter did actually partially ask the question I was going to ask, because it does. I know that you were an architect involved in the the early stage of this. So my question, which is also about wind, is to the extent to which that is a myth, or the extent to which it is true that the closure of the street with the glass screen was designed specifically as a windbreak. Or did that story develop later? So I'm asking you as original architects, one of them, whether
I was on the committee that employed the architects. I chose to not put my architect hat on because I wanted to have a say in who got the job.
Right.
I was keen to get locals on, and we got them. But my experience of solid wall windbreaks is the wind goes over the top of them. It doesn't know about. It's got vertical dimensions. It comes over the top, and if there's low pressure on the other side, it bangs down harder. But in fact, it's not a solid wall because there's doors on both ends of it. My proposal is we just cut an 8-metre hole in the middle of where the clock tower raised platform is, and you drive through there both ways. And there's still where the current stage is, that's still sheltered there, and on some days it'll still be sheltered on the other side. But it's inherently a bad place for a local event, and that's a lot to do with the argument that the number 6 State Highway goes straight past, and it's noisy and it's pollution.
So sorry if I can just. So are you saying, Bob, that that the story that the purpose of that glass separator, original purpose, was a windbreak? Is that not the case?
Well, I don't believe so. I don't know really. I mean,
Right. Okay.
there was dozens of people involved in that whole process, but let me tell you, there's been very few occasions in the last 24 years that it's been a popular public place. I mean, someone's put some pictures up recently of something to do with the shooting in Christchurch and down. There's a few people there, but we actually don't have a decent place, and that's. I'm not trying to design the future, but I'm trying to say let's not waste money there and save some, and make a decent place somewhere some other time. But spending money on this is not good.
Thank you.
Next down that line, Rangi.
Thanks, Chair. Bob, hey, look, this is great set of refreshing eyes on this problem. Hey, with the entrance and exit on D, you looking at a slip lane type thing where you just sort of...
Oh no, well maybe, I don't know. I'm not designing it. That's we maybe should have some traffic engineers involved, which we don't seem to have had so far.
Right, and the other thing is, what sort of traffic calming speed are you looking for that road? Because obviously you don't want people using the road that aren't going to,
No, my view is you make it a decent road, and you have a 4-metre wide lane each way.
Yeah.
But if it gets to be a problem, then you block it somehow. But I'd do it all now in one go, so that's the cheap way to do it.
So that drawing,
yes,
it shows your exit lane, your entrance lane is being separated by a wee bit of, or is that just
a wee bit of what?
Like a bit of
brown.
paving or
No. That's where the seating still is. It might actually survive there.
Okay. No, I'm talking right down there.
No, the cross.
Right down from Level Street to...
This bit down here?
This bit.
I don't know what that.
Yeah, right down the middle.
This picture.
It runs right down the middle, going from
No,
Level
I think he's talking about,
That brown bit.
Yeah, brown in the middle.
Well, that's just to separate the lanes.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No, that's great. Hey, good.
And so I think that the footpath and the road should be at the same level, so you can, with a concrete curb that's a sort of a drive-over curb which defines where pedestrians go. But if people want to drive down a driveway or whatever, in a taxi or whatever, they can do so.
No, looks great. Hey, thank you very much.
Trish.
Thanks, Bob. I appreciate the effort you've gone to and the thought you've obviously put behind this. My question is, why would you want an exit road going north up D Street?
Well, some of the people that come out of this 120 car park building possibly want to go north, and other people do, and this whole area is not a high density activity. I mean, although there's going to be 220 people in the hotel sometimes, they're not going to be in and out very often. I mean, Jeff's hoping that they're going to stay there for a few days. It's not a high pedestrian count area, and we don't need a high, so I don't think that's an issue. But I think it should be a two-way street. I didn't want to get into it, but someday our local buses might go down there. I mean, we haven't actually, in our big thinking in the last few years, got round to thinking about our buses, local buses very well. There's all sorts of things. And so, and somewhere in my detailed stuff, I've written that you need places for people, you know, for vehicles to go around. I mean, if people come from the airport, how do they get there? And how do they get out? And how we're used to roads. It's sort of fashionable to have cycleways and da-da-da-da-da. But vehicle things are still pretty useful. And most of us, I mean, who came here on their bike? You're all provided with convenient car parks just across the road. You know, we're a car-dominated society. This isn't a proposal to get an international magazine for paving.
Yep.
Have you considered what it would be like for the people from the hotel coming from the hotel into our central city, whatever, when there are two roads there?
No, they can come up the footpath. I've drawn that.
Yeah, I see that, but it's
They can come up the footpath and cross across the bus lane that's going to get 5 buses through it a day, maximum.
yeah, exactly.
So it's not a big deal.
No, okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Other questions? The late Anil.
Just an unusual question, Bob. Why are they Celtic columns? I like them, don't get me wrong, but why?
Well, John McCulloch's coming on later, you can ask him.
Right.
He was part of the designer, but and I know someone else is going to go on about the columns of wisdom. So you better be careful with what you take down, though. Oops.
No, just curious, that's all.
Or do it at night time.
Yeah.
Evelyn.
Well, one of the things we did in this vibrant city thing, which I've sort of argued at the end of my longer paper, is we have to get people involved. We have to have local people involved. And we've had lots of consultants in the last few years that sort of fly in and fly out, and they actually aren't that sharp on quite a few things.
Evelyn.
Yes, kia ora. Look, I'm a little bit puzzled as to why we are so obsessed with buses and cars and so not talking about people in this particular design that you're putting forward, because for those people who move around the city on foot, which is particularly common in that Esk Street area, the reintroduction of traffic coming out of Esk Street onto D Street is actually quite a challenging thought, because the use we have of Lower Esk Street is different than it was. The eateries that we have there now, for example, the fact that people have gotten accustomed to a more pedestrian-friendly side of D Street doesn't seem to bear into the discussion that you're having. So I'm interested in your thinking about that.
Well, my thinking is exactly the same as Mayor Clark's. If you have a look there, there's very few people actually use the place. I mean, a few people go across and use the food places, and sometimes there's a couple of people sitting outside there. I'm proposing that we increase the size of that outside space there a little bit. And although I've drawn a straight line around there for my vehicles, because when I'm cutting cardboard, that's my limit, but it'll probably actually have a curve in it. You know, and so there'll actually be more space outside there. But it's a myth that it's going to be a popular place that people want to go.
I'm not sure that you quite understood what I was saying, is that people use it not just to go and sit, but as a safe way to move along D Street between Clyde's, Leven Street, Little Street, you know, Clyde Street, what am I trying to say? Crescent. Yeah. Wrong part of the street. Crescent down towards the library, things like that.
I think it'll be a less busy intersection than the intersection with D and Spey Street, or many of the others along there. And as I've already proposed, you'd be better off going and using Don Street, whereas it's a T intersection that's blocked off more, and so it's less windy, and it's relatively easy to block it off if you want to have a public space. And we're not actually short of spaces in the new newly developed S Street for people to do things.
So a light controlled intersection then,
Well,
a traffic light
it's
controlled.
like no change. It's light controlled intersection now.
So, Bob, I just have one question. I know we've run over time, so whoever's ringing the bell in the background will probably ring it again. I was interested in the wind stuff. I worked in Menzies for about 10 or 15 years. If one of the options we went to, which was to retain the space but not have a road through it, but we wanted to open it up for foot traffic to come from the new hotel through to S Street, which is what we want as well. So it's not all about buses. I mean, it could be, but it's not. We want people to come out of the hotel and feel as though they can transition across and into S Street. That's what it's all about. Is it reasonable that with things like trees and other things to cut down that wind impact as opposed to what's there at the moment?
Excuse me, I don't want to. I was laughing. It's sort of a bit of a myth that trees do anything. I mean, I've taken photographs over the last little while. The trees have actually got no vegetation. Well, until recently, they've had no vegetation on them. Yeah. And so a few branches sticking up in the air, waving at things, is a bit of a joke. Okay. I mean, it's landscapers. Trees look good on plans, but they're actually no use.
Yep. Excellent. Any more questions? Thanks, Bob. Thanks for bringing your secretary along. Liz? Jenny, I see you right at the back there somewhere. You're the next one up. Where is she? How are you? Welcome.
Ko Te Rau Aroha Marae, ko Ngā Tauhitoko Iwi. No Mossburn Ho, ko Jenny Campbell Ho. He iti hippunamu, it may be small, but it's very precious.
Welcome. About 10 minutes, Jenny, and we'd like to have...
Is this better or that one?
Yeah, it's the speakers okay, the one you got.
Kia ora.
So you've got about 10 minutes, and we'll have some questions for you as well.
Okay. I'd just like to say how significant I realised Wokna Place was in my life. I live in Mossburn and I don't come to Invercargill very often, but I've been down here using it as meeting places, eating, using the toilet and the restroom when I'm catching buses. And I've realised that I've actually been to lots of musical events there, food places that, you know, when you've had those stalls, and protests, and often we've gathered there to walk to the City Council for various reasons, to tell the council what we felt about a certain thing that was on your agenda or whatever. Or after a protest, being able to go there and reflect on what had happened. So I thought it was important that I participated in this process as a ratepayer here and a true Southlander now. I'd like to have the area having one lane street coming in from D Street and turning left so that it's not interrupting with the traffic there after the pedestrian crossing. And I'd like to keep the columns. I think they've been put up for a reason and their significance needs to be explained. And in light of that, it gives plenty of space for people to continue to use that area, as the former submitter was talking about, people having access to that area, and remembering that we're now into active transport mode, so cycling, dare I say skateboarding, and lots of walking for people is the new way of looking at our city and it being easily accessible. There could be a pedestrian crossing within Wokna Place itself. Obviously, you'd have to take down the glass panels and the clock, and the clock could be reinstated somewhere else within the area. Also talking about the trees, they obviously need lots of care and attention, but I think having flowers and trees, appropriate trees, especially natives, is to cut down our carbon emissions and show how significant it is to have shade and shelter in there. And having one lane would mean there's more room for accessing for people to be there. I want to make sure the toilets are kept, and the restroom in particular is a place for us to wait when we're going on the bus. And hopefully there'll be more of the bus services going to areas further north, so that people can be using that along with trains, of course, which are hopefully going to happen. I'd like to see the area beautified, and one of the processes could be using local artists and with them changing. College students, Māori art, especially tangata whenua, and also having interpretation panels to explain the significance of the historical part of Wokna Place and why it became Wokna Place in the beginning. I think I've just about covered all the points I wanted to make. Oh, that's right. But the buses that are coming in from D Street would then only turn left onto Esk Street, so they're not cutting across the traffic. I've been there several times, and it's quite busy, that Leven Street section. So cutting across traffic, there wouldn't be that option for buses. And as was mentioned, there won't be a lot anyway, but there will be private cars coming to stay at the new developments in that space in Esk Street West, and also places, if you had angle parking as opposed to parallel parking, it would allow for more space in there as well. So hopefully with no parking meters, you know, a limited time you could have for free, which I've noticed as a country person coming into town. Nowhere for me to park anymore. Anyway, those are my main points I wanted to make. Kia ora koutou.
Thank you. I'll take the first question with you, Jenny. I guess we've got a balance between trying to create some, not necessarily bus access, but some connectivity between the new hotel coming through to S Street, because S Street is what we've developed. So that's one issue, but the other issue is that there is some volumes of level in the community think that we should still retain Wokna as a place of reside, or place of staying, I guess. So I just wanted your views on the latter on that, because at the moment, I mean, I've done some very rule of thumb checking. Every time there's a nice warm day, I go down to S Street and I see 30 or 40 people there, but then I cross over to Wokna and there's nobody there. And I think most of the people that use the food outlets either buy it and eat it in the outlets, or they buy it and take it away. So I just wonder, you know, if you wanted to retain, and you said you were keen on still having some ability in that area, what would need to change to make that more a place where people would be, as opposed to coming into S Street and using all the seating that's there as well?
I think that's what I was talking about, the artwork. Yep. And having some more interpretation panels and things to look at and so on. We've got really good at explaining some of the stories of our city, and I've just come from a Heritage South meeting planning Heritage Month next March. So that could be, you know, if we got it up and running, or maybe we could have a gathering there and ask people about stories like I've told you today about what's taken me to Wokna Place and why people gather there. So I think, you know, we could look around lots of parks and that we have in Invercargill, and they're not used constantly, but people use them when they have free time. They meet friends there on a nice sunny day, and having trees and beautifying it with not thousands of dollars worth of landscaping, but, you know, being mindful of our environment in general is changing, and we have to be up with it, making sure that we've got trees for carbon absorption, or dealing with carbon emissions, and modelling different ways of being, as in biking and walking, and less emphasis on cars and buses.
So just another.
Not sure if that meets your
no, that's all good. Just one other quick question. Given that you're a mature age like I Back in the day, we used to have the eyesight centre as part of the museum, and that attracted a lot of people who wanted to know where to go. And at this stage, we don't have a replacement for that in the city. So given that we've got two big hotels sitting right in the middle of our city now, is Wokner a place to have an eyesight centre where people wanting to know what to do in and around the city and tours they can go on?
Yeah, maybe a kiosk
Yeah.
with, you know, not too big. That's the thing, because you've got other things in there, as I said, that you can feature.
Sure.
Yeah, and especially if they're just arriving from out of town, having somewhere immediately they can get to.
Yep.
And I think that's even having more information in that visitors' restroom in the toilet area is quite handy, where you can sit down there and read pamphlets and look at things that you can do around the city. There's a lot going on here.
Yep, okay. Questions? Leslie?
Thanks, Jenny. So you feel that we should take down the glass panels and the brickwork and the clock and have single lane access. What's your comment on the comment of many other submitters about the wind tunnel, if we take down the glass panels and the tower, etc.?
It is quite breezy in there, but then I come from Northern Southland and you can't beat that, so, you know.
So because you said you've often used Wokner Place, I'm presuming you know it before the glass panels were there. Was it worse before they were there?
I think having solid panels doesn't actually cut the wind, because it's inclined to whip round the corner. You know, at your if you have a tin fence around your garden, it doesn't actually cut the wind, it goes over the top, swoops down into your garden, as opposed to having trellises or something. So maybe that, you know, having that kind of thing with roses and that over it, or some of the climbing native things that we can have, would be an alternative to having the solid glass panels. Would be another option.
Thanks.
Darren?
Councillor Soper asked my question about the windbreak. So let me just throw this one at you, Jenny. Did you know, I appreciate you coming down by bus, but did you know that everybody that parks at those parking meters gets the first half hour free?
Sorry?
The first half hour at those parking meters is free. Did you realise
Well, just shows you I'm a country bumpkin, isn't it?
Well, no, you don't know unless somebody tells you.
I know where a lot of the 90-minute ones are now, I must admit, and it allows me an hour to go to a meeting and come out and rescue my car. So thank you, Councillor Ludlow.
Tom?
Jenny, when I read your submission, I was pretty sure that the punchline would be that you did not want vehicles to go down through Lower S Street, but you do. So I just wonder, were you taken to that point because you felt that council would wish that to happen, or do you actually believe that it's a good thing for vehicles to be allowed down S Street? Because it's just the rest of your submission seems to be so defensive of Wokner Place that it was a surprise to read that punchline, put it like that.
I was quite surprised myself when I started writing how it's quite a special place with memories and so on, and I wonder if other people have got those good memories and want to build on them as well. So maybe making it more of a feature of the centre of town, which I understand was one of the reasons it was built. And when you've got those hotels and that all around, it's a nice place for people to go and actually sit outside. Yeah, and I see that we're hopefully going to do something more about the air pollution in Invercargill as well, so that might help people sitting outside. Yeah.
Tanya?
Ngā mihi nui kia koe, Jenny. Yeah, lovely to hear your stories. My question is really around, you talked about the pedestrian crossing within Wokner Place, but you also talked about the increase of cyclists and skateboarders, and now we have electric scooters and everything else. Just around safety, do you see that being an issue? I mean, given that, you know, that's a place where a lot of people gather, having entrance, even a one-way entrance into there, do you see any sort of hazards around accidents? Or
I think if there's a pedestrian crossing and the buses have turned, they're not going very fast. And I've just walked up Don Street, and realised how slowly the cars are moving along there. I was a bit doubtful about that when I saw all that happening. But yeah, there just seems to be a much more peaceful feel there now on that street. And the same with Esk Street. Yeah, so walking in town's really good to get a sense of how people are using the streets and the redevelopment that's taken place. And if this, I didn't realise there would only be maybe 5 buses a day, probably in the morning and the afternoon or whatever. But if they're turning, then obviously they're going slowly anyway, and the pedestrians crossing is just an extra safety precaution for people who are using that street.
Yeah, but you also talked about having cars entering on that as well. Did I pick that up?
Oh, cars coming
Yeah.
that way, yes. I presume there would be people in cars coming into the hotel and
Yeah.
that as well, yeah. I don't know much about the new development yet. I saw it last week with it all stripped out and I thought, oh, that's going to be pretty amazing. Yeah, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? You're done. Thank you very much for your time.
All right.
Appreciate your input.
Yeah, ka kite.
Okay. Lindsay, wherever you are. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Clark, councillors, staff, public. My name is Lindsay Fruin. I've been around this town for many years. I've been involved with many events in Invercargill, including the New Year's Eve family celebrations in Wapna Place. I believe we should be giving it a makeover. It's now to the tired looking, but I disagree with a bus lane. I was looking up the internet the other day and found a song in the 50s called The Train Goes Through the Middle of the House, because this is the railway line. And to me, spoiling Wapna Place by putting a bus lane in is not right. The official opening of Wapna Place, the late Noel Lee made a video. I watched that video a couple of years back. I don't know if anyone's here has looked at the video. Mayor Eve Poole, she was all excited, and in her words she said, I can imagine what it's going to be like. People in Wapna Place, there'll be music, there'll be dancing and happy people like it was in the old days. So I'm predicting she was thinking about the post office square, but I don't know. Now, Wapna Place. I believe Mrs. Wapna generously was a person who gave money to the development. I'm not too sure if it was money or land, and that's what we've got to remember. It's named after her. She put money into it. Now, I've noticed that you've done the Felbert Gates up. They were donated, and Anderson's Park. And I do not believe we should turn it into a bus lane for Mrs. Wapna's. Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied because I'm nervous. And if Mrs. Poole was alive today and still the mayor, you would have to be brain dead or, what's the other word I'm looking for? Brave, to come into Mayor Poole's office to suggest to her we remove the clock to put in a bus lane. She would take a deep breath, she would hit the roof, she'd have the person's guts for garters and order them out of the building. Now, Mrs. Wapna, she'll be devastated. I had the privilege of meeting Mrs. Wapna at the ripe old age of 106, and this was for the millennium celebrations that we had in Wapna Place, and that was through a city councillor, ex-city councillor Thelma Buck. She arranged for us to pick Mrs. Wapna up from the nursing home We brought her down. She was wrapped. She thanked us. We took her back to the home, spent some time with her. What tickled my fancy, every time she spoke about her husband, she called him Mr. Wagner. Now, I think we should show respect to those two ladies and keep Wagner Place the way it is, but just do it up. Thank you.
So I'll lead off with a question for you, Lindsay. We've done some canvassing of the young people in our city, sort of 18 to 30-year-olds, given that they're the next generation. Most of us are too old for that. And they were very much wanting to have street music, or I guess what they call street parties, with cheap food and even cheaper alcohol if they could get it. And we've had one of those recently in Don Street, and that was part of the dream that we had to do up Don and Esk. So regardless of whether a bus goes through or not, because that's a really contentious issue, or any access goes through, what would you do with Wagner to try and put some life back into it, other than it just being a memorial for Mrs. Wagner?
Well, I would suggest to rethink the outlay of the Wagner Place from the stage forward, remove all that stuff and get some design and make it a place for people to meet.
Okay.
Update it.
Yep.
I'm against the clock going. I can remember one year we had the New Year's party and we had an MC, and he got all the crowd pumping for the countdown. Now that MC is actually sitting here at the council table.
Did a great job too, Lindsay.
What, the MC?
Oh, sorry.
At a very reasonable price.
He was talking about GRATE. A great price. Yeah. Questions, councillors? Yeah, Peter.
Yeah, Lindsay, you mentioned or asked the question if Mrs. Mabel Wagner donated money to Wagner Place. Actually, in fact, what did happen, and council records will show that, she gifted 2 parcels of land to the City Council, and hence the name Wagner Place. Now, on the left going down, there was a building there called Aitchison's Building. Once that was the Invercargill City Library before it moved to Don Street, and over the other side was Smith and Rainsford's. So both those parcels of land, that, which I've been told, were gifted to the city by Mabel Wagner. So if we go with the buses as plans of here we put forward today, that means that both parcels of land will be overtaken by roadway, not the old roadway, but a cut across the corners of that gifted land. Now, to Mrs. Wagner, after making a gift to the city, you do that to a gift, what would her friends, or you're a friend of hers, and her relations and her descendants think? I think it would be a very sad day for Invercargill to put buses over gifted land.
Thank you, Peter. I agree with that.
What's your thoughts? Yeah, that's the question. What's your thoughts? Yeah.
I think the same. And when you brought up the reason about the wind tunnel, when we first started the New Year's party in Wagner Place, we put a tarpaulin over the back. I've got video footage of that. I watched it the other day, and you can see the tarpaulin.
And that was rectified, Lindsay. After that,
that's right.
They actually extended the glass piece to the north, and that fixed it.
That's right.
Am I right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Other questions? Oh, Evelyn?
Just a clarification, Lindsay. Is the name Wagner Place actually for Mrs. Wagner or for Mr. Wagner? Because he was the mayor. I mean, I'm not diminishing her gift, but it's more the name Wagner that is has the significance that comes from the mayor rather than herself.
Well, I can't answer that.
You don't know the answer?
No, but I know Paul was involved in it anyway.
Yeah, no, he was a legend in our family because of his provision of shoes families during the Depression. So when people, and my grandparents talked about Abraham Wapner and Mrs. Wapner, they talked about their generosity to those who had less. And so I'm really keen that the memory is continued, but I was just curious whether you knew whether it was he or she or both.
I was told that he used to throw the shoes down the stairs if you didn't buy them.
Or if you criticised them, I believe.
Well, don't throw any at me.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Lindsay.
No? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for hearing me out.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Just waiting for two others. So everybody out.
Oh, so Kat looks like she's just gone to get them. Yeah, so it's ahead of schedule. Time first to come.
Got Paul here.
Mr. Hurley's here.
Your lucky day.
Ready to go.
Jump the queue.
Rock it in there.
Don't mean I get more time.
Yeah, oh, why not?
Good try. Good try.
Good afternoon.
And welcome.
And thank you for the opportunity of hearing my ideas and thoughts. And I'd like to make a point that I'm not alone. Do you get emotional? Sorry. Hundreds of people would agree with the sentiment of what I express. I put posts on Facebook and we get likes, loves, positive comments about the whole business of preserving what we have. It just seems ridiculous to spend so much money demolishing something that would cost $2 million to build. I mean, where are we? What we need is education, public education, so people are brought up to speed with what the columns represent. Are 4 pillars of wisdom. Our knowledge, our skill, our history, and our attitude to the future. Now, when you look at them, they are a perfect transition from the busy retail area of Esk Street to the tranquility of Wapner Place. A lot of comments about Wapner Place being, not used enough. Look at the Japanese garden. Does anyone trample in there? No. We look at it. The serenity of it is beautiful. However, Wapner Place can still be used. I was there last Wednesday in gale force winds everywhere else. In Wapner Place it was calm. I was able to throw my hat into the air and catch it. It is designed to shelter from the westerly wind. Cutting a gap in that west wall would be equivalent to us taking out those windows permanently. We're told that Wapner Place isn't used very much. Why is that? We don't plan events there. How often is this room used? How often would it be used if we didn't schedule events here? Cut a gap in there. Don't schedule any events here and see what happens to this room. See what would happen to the swimming pool, the library, the Scottish Hall, the Civic Hall, if we didn't manage events there. What we need to do is ask our staff to include Wapner Place as a venue, to have weekly activities that can change so people don't get bored with it. We'd have mini golf, treasure hunts for kids. We could have temporary sand pit, things like that. Just try things out. People will come. People will enjoy that. We can have choirs invited to sing on Sundays. The main thing with Wapner Place is don't let people hijack it all the time. We had the Starbucks there hogging up a whole lot of space. We had the eye centre blocking off the stage. if we allowed buses in, that's if we could do it somehow, miraculously, windproof the gap that they come through. You know what that means to events? No voluntary organisation could ever have an event there without a traffic management plan. Do you know that costs money? A lot of voluntary organisations, they don't have money for that sort of stuff. They just want to be able to say, hey guys, we're meeting at Whatna Place. There's something really important for us to protest about. Pensioners need more money or something like that. That is very important in a democracy. Now, have a look at the map of Invercargill. How much space is devoted to motor vehicles and how much space is devoted to pedestrians, exclusively to pedestrians? In the city centre, Whatna Place is the only pedestrianised area, the only one. We're going to trash it? We're going to allow buses through there? I don't think so. I thought it was a lone voice, but so many of the other submissions agree with us that we need to preserve Whatna Place, and instead of looking at the architecture and the colour of the paint and all that, invest in people. We're coming to a crossroads in the whole way that we live. We have invested enough in motor vehicles, buses, real estate. Now we need to invest in people. We need the events team to coordinate events in Whatna Place. We need the public education force of the council to come up to speed with telling people what the Celtic columns represent. Thank you.
So just a couple of pearly questions for you. We're putting quite a bit of effort into events being, especially over the spring and summer months, events being in Don Street and S Street. Are you suggesting that we add that to Whatna, or we take away from those areas and focus more on Whatna?
Well, what I've noticed about events in Esk Street and in Don Street, we have temporary food caravans and stuff like that. The first thing they do is they park to block off the wind. Whatna's got that already. And there is also, we have to consider the non-commercial aspect of things. We're allowing our whole lives to be dictated by food, and we all carry too much of a spare tire and alcohol. There's nothing wrong with having Whatna Place as an event. We just have to say that's where we're meeting and people will come.
Okay. Questions, councillors? Yeah, Peter.
Congratulations. You mentioned alcohol. What did you say about alcohol? Zero alcohol in Whatna Place, or do you think we should have alcohol there on special occasions? What's your thoughts on that?
I haven't given it a lot of thought, but basically I do drink myself, but I'm not an advocate of having alcohol available at every occasion. I just think we should try and steer away from that kind of culture. So I'd say no to alcohol.
Like in this day and age with cafe bars and that, people can dine outside and have a quiet drink. I mean a quiet drink, a wine or something less. Thank you.
Leslie.
Thanks for the submission. I noticed that one of the things you advocate for is making Whatna Place more child friendly. Considering that it's right next door to a state highway, would you see the need to put up some barriers at that front part as part of more child friendly place?
Possibly, but I think the way it is at the moment, there are a couple of plots. There's a tree in the middle of a plot, and there's actually enough room just to chuck in a load of sand and a few toys, and the mums are pretty vigilant. They'll be watching their little toddlers. I've seen little kids in Whatna Place for different events before. It's not a big problem.
Okay. And I noticed your comment about the westerly winds. Do you have personal experience of Whatna Place before there was a barrier up there? Before the glass in the clock tower was put up?
No, but I can imagine, because that's something we're always battling in Southland. And a lot of consultants who come into town and draw lovely pictures of landscaping, they forget that the westerly wind is something that we have to consider.
Thank you.
Alan.
Sorry, Paul. You don't, with the walking the place thing, I mean, I agree with you on quite a few points, but with the walking the place thing as a
You're
child
talking to the
play
microphone, Alan.
do you not see an issue with the attraction across the road and having to cross State Highway 1 to get there? If you've got a lot of people in walking the place, you know, at a particular event, they're probably going to want to go across the road, which is, of course, as Leslie said, a State Highway 6. You don't see that as a problem because, I mean, it's unfortunate that it is disjointed by State Highway 6. Because the attraction of Invercargill Central, if you like, and the street the way it is at the moment. You don't see it as a possible issue?
Well, of course it could be an issue. At the moment, everywhere that you look, there is an issue of a toddler running under a bus or under a car, but it doesn't happen because they tend to be looked after well. I'm not saying that you say walk in a place, oh, let's get a lot of kids and just pile them in there. Each child would have a minder. We might find that it's a good idea to put a barrier and stuff like that, but not to put too much emphasis on construction, to work out how to talk to people and work out all these kind of problems. We seem to be putting too much emphasis on developing real estate and not just people.
Supplementary, because I do totally agree that there is no other place in Invercargill where without a traffic management system you can actually go and meet. Really, it is the only place.
Yep.
If you do something in the street, you're right, something has to be done. There are bollards, of course, that can go up the creative street into a mall sort of situation. But the focus, you don't sort of feel the focus has sort of changed from walking the place really to across the road, really to Esk Street, in fact, with the bollards that can just be raised and suddenly the road's closed. You don't think that suffices for the same thing? I'm not too sure whether a traffic management plan would be required for that or not. Well, I don't know myself personally. What do you think? Do you think that would that supplement that? Is what I'm asking. Would that take care of that if that was available as a place to use without traffic management? Would that meet the requirements of what you mentioned?
Well, possibly, but walking a place is like a room, isn't it? It's an actual room. The East Esk Street is a corridor. It's quite different. You have a meeting in a room. In a corridor, you tend to drift along from one thing to another, one shop, one cart to another, or whatever. And walking a place is designed as an event venue, so it's a matter of actually scheduling events there, inviting people to come along and do things. And there are lots of organisations. The puppy training club, they do something on a Saturday morning, they choirs and stuff like that. It's just putting a bit of effort into it. And okay, it's going to cost something to do that, but it's better to pay a salary than a huge amount of real estate, because these real estate projects, they're just getting balmy. It's time to draw a line in the sand and say, look, we've had enough of it. That area does not need to be made up and enhanced again. It's already been done once. Focus on a street that hasn't been done up yet with that same amount of resource and funding.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, Barry.
Yeah, I walked down East Street the other day in a westerly, and walking in place, the barriers didn't make any difference at all. I just about got blown over. So, yeah, I struggled to see that the barriers they might be right when you're standing right beside them, they might be fine, but walking down Esk Street in a westerly is always a struggle.
Is that a question? What's the question?
Sure as it wasn't.
Good that you
I'm just telling you the effect of what.
Okay. Well, when I was there, I was quite near the stage.
Yeah.
In the area that what you'd call the mosh pit, if there was a band going, it was great. Absolutely. Yeah. Hat went up in the air, I caught it, and I've captured it on video if you want to see it.
Yeah. I mean, if they went there.
It was 50 kilometre winds. I've got a photo of the actual Met figures as well for that same time that I threw the hat up, just as proof. Yeah. If you want to see the evidence, so to speak.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions? That's done. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Laura, wherever you are, the stage is yours. Welcome. About 10 minutes or so. Great if you could use the microphone.
Perfect. Kia ora koutou katoa, ko Laura Pope tuku ingoa. My name is Laura Pope and I am a Health Promotion Advisor as part of the National Public Health Service NPHS in Invercargill within Te Whatu Ora. I'm here to discuss with the Council how and why creating a street through Wakna Place influences health and wellbeing. A person's health and well-being are not influenced by their individual behaviour, but also factors that are situated in their environment. The built environment is related to buildings and infrastructure, as well as land use, which are often human-made and construct the physical world around us. Studies have shown that the built environment is able to influence health outcomes such as mental health, high blood pressure, weight, and other heart-related illnesses. As a result, it is necessary to consider how the physical environment may influence behaviour, which as a result can influence health outcomes. NPHS Southern has no preference over the financial restructuring for City Block. We do not feel it appropriate to make a comment on the financial implications of Council. NPHS supports option 2, People First-esque connection to City Centre with bus access from Levin Street. Option 2 of the proposed change to Wakna Place allows for safe and active travel in and around D Street. Several times, the current document discusses a pedestrian-friendly environment. A pedestrian-friendly environment is one that promotes the public to walk and move about a space freely without anxiousness of incoming traffic. In the master plan, step number 5 states that the Council intend to enable easy pedestrian and cycle access through great connections to city, green spaces and water. I would argue the best way to do so for Wakna Place would be to make it pedestrian only. Not only will it encourage movement in and around the west end of Esk Street, but it will prevent any harm to pedestrians from incoming traffic. Option 2 is able to create a supportive environment for good wellbeing, enabling the opportunity to create more green spaces within the CBD for mental health and hauora. Urban green spaces can promote physical and mental health, reduce morbidity and mortality by relieving stress and stimulating social cohesion. If Council are able to create an opportunity to provide more green spaces that are accessible in and around the CBD, they will help to maintain good wellbeing. Invercargill is a relatively windy place, and currently Wakna Place has a wind barrier. This prevents high-speed winds from tunnelling all the way to Esk Street and removes any unpleasantness for pedestrians. To remove the wind barrier for the purpose of a road is likely to cause significant winds from one side of Esk to the other. We do not support option 1 and the implementation of a road for the purpose of tour buses. A concern when creating a road for the purpose of tour buses is that there is likely a risk of other undesignated vehicles using the road, also known as rat running. There are 4 key concerns surrounding the potential of rat running, including increased traffic noise, increased pollution and built-up areas, congestion and safety concerns. Each of these negatively affect wellbeing to the pedestrian and other road users. Climate change is a responsibility that we all need to be accountable to. The Climate Change Act 2019 has set the priority that New Zealand will reduce their emissions to 0 by 2050. We encourage Council as a local authority to take this as a priority and consider how each of your decisions make an impact on climate change. It is misunderstood that creating a road will provide more space for current drivers to spread out and make roads less congested. It has been found that the more roads equate to more cars and as a result more emissions. Therefore, by creating a road, it is likely you will be contributing to more emissions. Creating a road provides the opportunity to increase local traffic and encourages the use of motor vehicles rather than prioritising pedestrians and cyclists. The National Public Health Service Southern supports implementing a CCTV policy. Safety and the perception of feeling safe is important for wellbeing. The National Guidelines for Crime Prevention outlines this. It is important that people can feel safe by improving visibility, sightlines, and casual surveillance. Building and designing surveillance is necessary to ensure safer communities. Therefore, we support the implementation of a CCT policy to create safer environments for all. In conclusion, the National Public Health Service do not have a preference over the financial decisions of Council. We strongly recommend adoption of option 2, People First S Connection. We do not support the proposed option 1 through Wokna Place, and we support the implementation of CCTV policy. We thank you for the opportunity to speak. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa.
Questions, councillors?
Kia ora. Just given that Otapuna Gardens are down below Tay Street, you spoke about the importance of the green space. If you want to elucidate on why you think that particular green space rather than the other somewhat proximate green spaces is really desirable and beneficial, would you expand on that for me, please?
Well, I don't negate the fact that the Otapuni Gardens is important to have there as a green space. I think that contributing to the urban landscapes and designs by improving green spaces in and around the city centre is important, and there's been a bit of research into that as well and how that is good for wellbeing. Yeah.
Thank you for making the connection.
Leslie.
Thank you. So your submission would be that Wokna Place be retained as pedestrian people first area but improved?
Yes, well, I mean, in the proposal, it did have, well, from my interpretation of it, there were more green spaces in and around there, so that's why I mentioned it in the submission as well. I think it's all about creating a supportive environment that brings people together, and yes, I felt that option 2 best suited that, so I don't necessarily have any comment on improvements necessarily, but yeah.
Thank you.
Rangi.
No, that's fine.
All right. Pania.
Kia ora. Do you think having more events there or scheduled events there regularly would attract people in specifically?
Yeah, I think that the thing is that it's all about what you create of the environment. It's and that's kind of what I emphasized at the start, is we create the environment that we operate and work in, and so I would say yes, creating more events there would likely bring people together and make it a positive space.
Thank you.
Tom.
Hi, I was interested in your comment about climate change and the fact that, you know, yet another road is not necessarily the wisest thing. Of course, and there will be a question at the end. Of course, the hotel is there. People have got to arrive at it somehow. And I think our thinking, to the extent we thought about it at all, was that it's better to arrive by bus than by any other means of transport, because people have got to get there somehow, haven't they? So you want to comment on that? I mean, I think one of the aims of the whole climate change mitigation movement would be to try to move people onto buses rather than have everybody arrive by car.
Yes, so we promote active and public transport because, like you're saying, it is a way that we can mitigate emissions. But I think there are 2 other options that you've listed in that document where you don't need to create, or at least one, that you don't need to create an extra road. And I think it's the purpose that there's also that risk of other cars using it as a road to cut corners, and that's where the concern would be over increasing emissions.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No? Thank you very much, Laura.
Yes.
You're free.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Who we got now? Louise. No, going? No, gone. We're missing one. Oh, no. And welcome, Louise.
Thank you. I've realised that I'm arriving here and I'm going to talk totally on the fly, which is always a disaster. But anyways, I've submitted. I submitted from a backpack room in Dunedin. Only after submitting, so I had no concept the full columns are going, despite having your document in this plan. It's like the full columns are going. And also I don't understand because the railway hotel isn't drawn in here, and I'm going, is that a mistake? And someone's told me that council don't make mistakes. I can't comment as to why the railway hotel's not in there. What I feel actually, was it Laura? It's like, wow, she echoes everything that I feel. If I'd had time, I would like to have tried to get information about the number of submissions by the public in our mall development. And out of all the thousands of submissions that you got, what percentage, how many articulated that when we spend 50 million, we wanted amenities for us, including green spaces and parks and playgrounds? Well, we didn't get that. We didn't get that there, despite spending rather a lot. So now we have another public space, and I've learned all about Mabel Wapner's thing, and this inner city revitalisation plan of old, and the investment we made in the towers, which, reading Mr. Hurley's Facebook post as to the meaning, I'm going, oh, I never knew that. They are, I'm off on a tangent. So we have a public amenity with lots of long-term strategic goals for it that's in our CBD heart, and the Otapuni I think is amazing, but it is to me distant. This is about our CBD and heart. It's about the amenity for the public, for us, for the ratepayers that elect you, which in our needs, and it's also about the dollar benefit to us and to the council and to businesses of getting the heart right. And this is actually a debate about the intricacies of the ingress and egress of people to one singular hotel, of which there are 3 options, all of which getting the green-friendly bus there just by a few metres difference of hell. So the public that elected you, and I think when they learn the columns are going, when they understand this, and Mr. Clark, you're telling us we might need amenity in the Otapuni Gardens and sand, but I think we want to retain what we've got. Wapner Place, I have heard, oh, the council is saying it's not used, and actually it is true. And oh, and I'm digressing, I went for the first time when I came back from Tuatara, walked into Wapner Place, and I stood at the back. I actually stood on the stage, I've never stood there. And I realised, oh, way cool, it slopes. It slopes downwards, and it is, and truly I can echo Mr. Hurley. Like, I stood there on a brisk or cool evening, and when I went to the stage and my friend and I walked through, I was going, oh, it's cold, and I said, oh, it was actually calm. And we went back, and I can tell you for a fact it was calm. And I think also it's been said that when there's been the night market in the other East Street, it's like the organisers park the caravans there to create shelter. So we do have a very cool amenity. Why is it not used? People have argued for green space, but it's actually, I think, so my thing is, whatever you decide, make use of it before you knock the columns down and get rid of it. How about enhancing it? Enhance it so it's not actually got the right, people need some of the money for the 14 million in rugby seats for occasional use. What about updating the seats? The trees have actually, they're pretty amazing now. It's actually a green space, but not green. People want to sit, they want to congregate. It's, but it's, you need to enhance and foster. It's not best used by people because it's not connected somehow. And lower-esque revitalisation can do that. You need green, you need seats, and also council needs to use it. I've learned you have a whizzy new venue manager that seems to have a lot of energy and vision, and he is doing some amazing things. First Friday at the Civic Theatre, the Scottish Hall, he's brought energy to managing, revitalising that. I would like you, please, to tomorrow, this week, this month, please give him responsibility. He's young, he's got energy, he hasn't got the dollars, but just say, hey, put your oversight. There's never been any oversight by council to bring us the events that draw us there, the occasionally Angela Newell, which is the arts, what do you call it? The arts festival. But council's actually not best used at either. So anyways, now we talk about use of Mr. Thompson, and he's a hotelier. I realise this, he does not actually express the needs of his guests. We don't know, I don't know, you don't know, and he doesn't know. He's in an office, he's a developer and concerned about the bricks and mortar, isn't he, and consents. He's not even the staff that serve the guests. So after they're in the door, what do they want? What do we want as a city for these people that stay at that hotel, but also Langlands and the Kelvin and all the motels? And I actually randomly went to farmers market, and as I do, spoke to strangers getting into my car, because I'm kind of going, what's opposite the farmers market is changing and is going to, and I said, oh, well, sorry, we're not from here. It's like, oh, okay. But I go, oh. And I got into a conversation with them. I painted a few sentences. I said, can I get your opinion? So random data point from 2 Canadians who literally told me, they said, and I better read what I've said. They said that their answer was a resounding pedestrianised, and they did roll their eyes at the plans for buses. They said that everywhere in the world, all the cities in the world had realised that pedestrianised was king. That was their words. And I go, oh, excellent. And they said they'd driven through Invercargill City CBD, and we've been looking where to park. Like, not where to park, because it's Sunday morning and there's parks for Africa. That they said we couldn't actually find where it was we should choose to park, where there was heart. And where they'd come was little teeny tiny farmers market that are seeking intimacy and heart, and those pillars, they actually are the only thing that kind of narrows and give presence to our CBD. Like, to me, they define something. And anyways, I'm losing my track now, but if we can get this right, and your responsibility is to your residents, and it is to getting the best best dollar formula for having guests walk out the door into a pedestrianised, lower-esque, into our heart with their wallets. You want us to congregate and linger, not just park outside a shop and go. You want us to stay and, like, oh, we have a sandwich and we talk and we go into another shop. It's not the needs of a hotelier, it's the needs of city visitors and guests generically. And to me, there's no debate. I think I've probably said, and I truly do, despite all this wonderful submission, I kind of rather think that people don't know all the detail. And Mr. Clark, I'm going to be naughty, in your beneficence to bring sculptures and sand, if Wapna Place goes, your legacy might be for what you take away, in a way, because that's quite profound to remove that. Sorry, but I do think that. So please enhance, and please events manage. Please place this under a council employee who can oversee it. I think that, and perhaps, sorry, was it Laura spoke about health needs, but social amenity, but I'm wondering whether other agencies like Great South or whoever it is that can talk about the dollar benefit of a CBD with heart. Thank you.
So one quick question for me, and it's not about beaches or sculptures. If we didn't have the hotel on the other side, which we didn't have recently, it's just if we didn't have the hotel development on the other side, which we didn't have recently, it's only a recent thing, we still had no activity in Wapna Place.
But that's what I mean. So that's what I've heard, that there is an argument that because it's not used, remove it. well, that's too, that, you could approach that to everything. It's like, oh boy, rugby park. How about that? You know, seriously, I truly don't think that's a good argument. I think we've invested millions. It's about making it better and making it enhanced and tweaking it. It doesn't necessarily, I think that is not the argument to remove it, even though it's true. It's how do you improve it? That's how I see it.
Leslie.
I think Trish was first.
No, you're fine. I'll get to that, everybody.
Louise, is part of the essence of your submission that there are plenty of other access points to the hotel, but there is only one Wapna Place?
Yes, that is a correct summation. And again, at the end of the day, in the debate out of the three options, isn't this actually mostly about ease of consent, ease of obtaining consent, and dollar cost to Mr. Thompson? Like in a way, like as in, it's not actually. Is it about the ease to the guest? It's mostly the inconvenience to the bus driver. I don't actually literally understand like all of these just come for the ease of. We actually are kind of quite lucky that we've already got the hotel being built. We've got it. This isn't prior to that if we don't do this, we won't get the hotel. Like I think there are three options, all achievable. We don't have to give away Wapna Place, of which we've invested ratepayers millions. We should enhance.
Trish.
Sorry, Louise, this is not a question, but I appreciate your passion and
sorry,
the work that you've done in bringing this to us. Thank you.
Alan.
Just got a couple of questions, Louise. You did mention that, was it the first time you've been to Wapna Place?
Oh no, it's not the first time I walked the place, but it's the first time I myself have stood on the stage.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and faced outwards.
Do you appreciate it's not a big space there, so any event that probably had more than 200 or 300 people, that would have to be about the limit, I'd be thinking.
That's a lot of people for Invercargill.
Yeah, but if you were in that, did you see the food thing in Don Street? And
yes.
There would have been there was thousands there. That could not have been a Wapna Place. Would you agree with that?
That's true, but that doesn't. That's like each event will have some things will be in Scottish Hall and some will be in Repty. So that's right, and we want to celebrate our mall.
But if you have a successful event, you're going to have thousands, not. Literally a couple of hundred.
I would say there are hundreds of successful events which are below the 300 that you say. Like there is multiple uses of busking events and actually when we, and I'm perhaps similar, like I'm not the venue manager or any of these community groups, or I don't have that knowledge of the actual people with the bright ideas and the energy to organise things, or the things that the venue manager could tap into, because it's sort of accidental. It's been built, but it's never been fostered or given any love by council.
They've had bands and things there, you see, but luckily, in some respects, they weren't totally well, patronised, because if they were well patronised, you would have had an issue once again with State Highway 6 being right there.
Yeah.
It's not large.
The only bands I can recall is occasionally there's been a New Year's thing. That's really all I can. I think mostly people want to congregate. I can't answer this. It may not be these big events. It's actually that, like where you see people sitting was on the green raised bed outside the courthouse, and where you saw them sitting in Wapna Places in the two green areas there. I think it can be made more inviting, and I just think there's young people. I'm in older decades now. Like there are young people with energy and really neat ideas.
There's a stage down Esk Street now being built, sort of about 2/3 of the way down towards Calvin Street. There's a big stage there, and you've got the bollards, of course.
This may not necessarily be about the stage. I think it's a congregation point and a point of connecting Lower Esk and Esk and defining what these Canadians say, where is our heart? Like where is, we don't have an octagon, but we're sort of, in a way, don't we have with this, is it on here, this cross section with War Memorial and columns, whoa, and if we, I don't have the vision, but if we can do a 3D of this amazing new East Street East with hopefully a revitalised Lower Esk and a railway hotel and a railway station and a market, maybe the farmers market can go on that street. If you can get that whole, that's, we don't have an octagon, what on earth would someone come up with that name? And these Celtic towers have a meaning, thanks to Mr. Hurley on Facebook. And actually, Joe Massey pointed out the meaning. I'm going, oh, the image of the waypoint of the Celtic Maori by the post office, those columns. We should be shouting that as a that should be on our brochures, and all of this is in a it's almost like our own octagon, our own cross thing. We can like just kind of make it up and embellish it a bit, do an aerial photo or something. You know, what's our symbol on a shield or on a you know, I'm sure we can. Someone who's good at graphic design can do a footprint. Do some sort of footprint that's us out of that shape, and the kind of someone clever can link in how you've got your curve of Levenstring and the heritage buildings we've got in this small area. We kind of need to go like a real big footprint.
Thanks, Louise.
That's what I think. Sorry, apologies. Thank you.
Any other questions? No. Thank you, Louise.
Thanks, Louise.
Right, we've got a 10-minute break.
Thanks, Louise.
Slightly more.
I don't really like summer shirts that much.
Okay, team.
I'm not a short sleeve shirt kind of guy, you know. Evidently.
Thank you, Alan, for being quiet.
Yeah, nice
Okay,
to shirts.
Tina. So welcome. You have about 10 minutes or so. We'll ask you some questions at the end.
I want to see a roof put over Wokna Place. I really do. And I'm coming from not just the culture side, but I'm looking at a lot of our younger audience as well. Sort of would like to see something like a bit of hip hop, bit of the musos, like make it a family place for like Friday and Saturday nights. Because there's a lot of crime I noticed around and things by the younger ones, because I think they're bored. The younger ones have kids zone, but the middle lot of our teens don't. What have they got to do? Crime. That's, you know, because my daughter's 15 and she's moaning, what is there to do? Can't go to kids zone because I'm too old. So, okay, you've got South City who's doing stuff as well. Now I'm going to put it out there. I've just launched my own toy workshop. And I'm getting myself out there. I've just started on Sunday. I just launched it, and I'd like somewhere where I could come and just give it a blast. I'm not going to be out of the norm. Everyone associates poi with kapahaka, but I'm not. I'm out of the norm. I'm going out of the norm, and I want to teach the poi to the younger audience, to the ones that the kids like special needs, go into the like rest homes, because we need to use our hands. A lot of our elderly are going to lose that. I don't want to see that. I want to see them still able to use their hands, be able to do things. Bit of crafting, you know. But I'm working with poi, but I'm out of the norm. So poi kapahaka, no, that's not me. And I would like to see Wokna Place used more often by more, and cut the crime down. Just please cover it. Fix the floor up so we can do a bit of hip hop, may have a bit of skateboarding there somewhere, you know. Have seats that can go back, like you can have seats out, seats in, you know. We've got to make our city, we want our young people to be in there. We want them. You don't want them wandering around doing crime all the time. We need to, like, get these kids in there and give them something to look forward to. Even make it like a family thing on Friday and Saturday nights. No alcohol, you know, make it fun. Make these kids go, oh, we got this, we can do this. Ask the schools. Like we can do, like the schools all have their culture groups. They can get them out there. We have choirs in schools. Instead of just having it at the civic, invite them, say, hey, we've got this. It'll be something for these kids to really look forward to. And even us adults, like myself, I'm out there, I'm willing to teach adult poi too. Because a lot of people don't. I want to take it out of the norm and put it out there so people can enjoy. It's something, we need to have something different and out of the norm. So yes, I'm going around talking to different places. I've been on my feet all day today. Like, I'm not well. I don't keep well. I have arthritis and fibromyalgia. You wouldn't think it, but what it takes is up here. To make that strong is what I've got to make this work. And I'm hoping you will all see from my point of view, get these youths off the streets, give them somewhere to go. Somewhere to hang, like, okay, somewhere to hang. I know it's in town, but they can do something. Like years ago, when I was younger, I used to breakdance. Whereas we got now they call it hip hop. We can do, like, why not? Set it up, have a stage, they can have hip hop comps, you know? You'll probably see it would take off. I don't know what you all think, but it's just putting it out there, getting that feel, and I think the kids would actually like it, and the families. What about the families? We need something for families. Like, we could get the schools to do like art. Like, I know Aurora College does art. I only know that because my daughter's an artist. But we could get the schools to do art, choir, kapahaka. We've got heaps. These kids are like, our kids aren't dumb, and I hate it when teachers label them dumb. None of our kids are dumb. They have got something that they're strong at. Just like myself, I had to get myself. It took me 10 years to do this. Here I am. I've never thought I'd sit here in front of the City Council of Invercargill. Someone that used to just go, just standing here like I am right now. It's a long way and it's a good rate. I just hope that you take what I say, put it out there and see what everyone else says. Because it's, you want people in town, right? You want people to come in. You've got the nice mall that you've made. And I can tell you now, I was sceptical, but I'm going to eat my words and say it's the best thing you've ever done. Congrats, pat yourselves all on the back because it's brilliant. It's what Invercargill needed, but now we need to bring that vibe, bring it into town. You're going to get people from out of town coming in. Have something up there up at Wapna Place all the time. So we're bringing people through. We've got our country schools, bring them into town. We need to get this going. So I'm asking, I know it seems a lot for me, but I just can't see why we can't have a new roof, put a floor, a sort of smoother floor in there, take that whatever floor it is in there out because it's rough, so we can have a bit of skateboarding, a bit of mixing, but have a roof. We need somewhere for the young ones to go. When it's wet, like we know our weather's inclement at times, so we've got our weathers, we can have 4 or 5 seasons in one day, but we want to have fun. I want this place to be fun. You've started it, now keep it going. Please. Yes?
Some questions on Leslie.
Thank you. So thank you for the submission. You're obviously an enthusiast for people activating of Wapna Place. So how do you see the guests of the hotel getting to the hotel and then getting into the city?
Well, we've got taxis, we've got buses. Our buses seem to be not too bad. I've seen, where I live, down Regent Street, there's a bus down there, it's about every 45 minutes, am I correct? Is it about 45 minutes, roughly? So we've got ample buses, taxis, and town's not far. We've got, like, districts full of motels, hotels, whatever. You've got the nice one you've just made in town. You get musos in there, they can come across. It's not far to take the gear and, you know, we've got this brilliant town. You've made it. I've grown up here all my life. I was born in 75, so technically I own McDonald's. That's mine. I was born there. I was on the gate on the front in the top second floor. I know where I was even born. So
lots of us were born there.
Yeah. So yeah, just me. But I want to make this. You've got it for semi-vibrant, right? You don't want to close off your street. So if you open up Wapna Place, what's actually going to happen is you're going to have a wind tunnel. You've already got a wind tunnel on the side, just on the side of your street there. That wind tunnel's still there. That's nasty. But you don't want to open up the bottom of your street. You've got it where it is now. Now you just need to build to bring it out.
Thank you.
Kia ora, Tina. Just in terms of activating young people,
yeah,
I freely admit I'm the wrong person to talk to. There's an impression that young people don't use Wapna Place.
Yeah.
In your perspective, why don't they, or do they? And are we misinformed? Are they currently using it?
It's just a pass by. I wouldn't even use it because it's open, it's wet and it's cold. Okay, it's got nice seating, yeah, on a hot day is good. But what's really there happening? There's nothing a lot happening, whereas if you put a roof over it, you'll probably get SIT students down there too. It could open up a whole new world. That's the big one. So you look at it with this, like, think, put a roof over it, okay, fix the floor at the bottom up. Think, well, you've got SIT students, you've got the film students. You've got a whole world there at SIT that's, you could bring them down. They can video it, put it live. You know what I mean? It's going to open. You've already partially opened up the town. Like, you've got the bloody good town, right? So you've got the new mall. Everyone says the car park's rubbish, full. I love it. I parked in that car park and I walk around town. Why am I going to run around and find a car park when I never find one? I can walk it, go in there, get a car park and go wandering.
So you would agree with a submitter earlier who said that part of the problem was that we didn't actually organise or be proactive about encouraging people to use the space?
Well, yeah, kind of like that, yes. But if we had a roof over it, it's probably more, how do I say, you've got a stage so you can get up there, you can perform, do your thing. You know what I mean? You need to have, like, you want to make it, you want people to come. You want to drag them in. You don't want to just have to, like it is now. Like, I don't really go there. I just pass on through. You know, if I'm walking, screw through, go to my destination. And like the seats, you've got seats there, but I'd clean all that out and make it, you've got seats that can come out, but around the outside. So around the outside, you can have permanent seating. So you've got people that can come and have lunch, and you've still got those grass verges on the outside as well. Keep those, but the rest of it goes. So you've still got semi-permanent seat there, but there's a whole world there. You just don't realise it can open up so much more. We want, like, you want your families to use it, right? You want to make it you've got parts of the town family friendly. I've seen a lot on your street now compared to what I have ever seen.
Come in.
Yeah.
Other questions? No? Done. Thank you, Tina.
Thanks, Tina.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, she's brave.
Richard, wherever Richard is. Richard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors, for the opportunity to have a say on this area of Lower East Street. I'll start with option one. I disagree with it entirely, mainly because, let's turn the page over here, you've got the buses coming off D Street to go down S Street to get to the hotel. If any bus that wants to go down D Street and into Kelvin, down to S Street, I should say, is going to have to use both lanes of the road to get in there. There's no way a bus can turn that quick, that short distance. It's not a possibility. I think it's a bad way of coming about it anyway, because it's going to destroy the whole of Wokna Place. If you go to option two, they show there that the buses can come along 11th Street and park parallel to the side of the hotel. Now that there's a more sensible option, because people coming out of the bus are going to be coming away from the weather if it's rubbish weather that we often have here. So they're going to come out on the shelter side of the bus. I prefer option two because it still allows the Wokna Place to be used. I disagree with the clock tower being moved, quite honestly. I think it's a good place for it there. Now, if people in the railway hotel are having problems with the noise from the chimes, well, cut the chimes off. You know, there's no reason why the clocks can't still be used. I mean, it's a great focal point there. And I mean, as someone else pointed out, it's a you've got the mechanical equipment actually working. You can see it working. You know, it's the only clock we've got in the town now. The Troopers Memorial clocks have been taken out, and there's a big hole there. It doesn't look right. It needs to have those clocks up in there. That's you know, we've been there for over a day, well, as far as I can remember anyway. And I mean, okay, we had problems on occasionally where they didn't actually keep time and the rest of it. But I mean, you know, there's no other clocks in town. The colonnades. I mean, again, you look out up D Street and you can see the colonnades. I mean, there's nothing else there. There's nothing else in town there, so they should be kept. The clock tower, as I put in my submission, was that it should stay there. But if it's absolutely dead set and necessary to be moved, then it should be refurbished and used again, either at the front of the civic administration building here, where the leaves of grass are, if you like, as they call them. And then they could be go in front of the new museum. Alternatively, the clock could be refurbished and used as part of the entrance to the new museum. It's another option. If I go to page 2 here. Now I may be dumb, I don't know, but this is the council briefing paper that's come out. It's got all the plans, rough plans anyway, of how things are going. They only show the railway hotel. I had to come in and actually ask, is the railway hotel being demolished? Because it's the way it shows here. It's not on the plan. It's not the car parking building is part of it. So I just don't quite see how the car parking building is. I can see going in, the cars going in there. It doesn't show the cars coming out of it. Now, I'm sure there's some way of it's been planned to do that, but it doesn't show on these drawings, any of them. And the fascia for the new car parking building that's going to be in there, it should, the front fascia of it should be more in keeping with the Rawa Hotel, rather than what's in Levin Street for the current car parking building, library car parking building, shall we say. That's my submissions, thank you.
Excellent, thank you for that. Questions? None. No, I was going to ask you just about if we go to an option that doesn't involve transport through Wagner Place.
Can you speak up, please? I'm hard of hearing. So.
Yep, me too. If we go to an option that doesn't involve transport through Wagner Place, so that's option 2 or 3, you're suggesting we leave the clock tower potentially in Wagner Place? And what does that look like when you're trying to entice people to come into the inner city? Like I've been there now last couple of days in the construction site, and I've looked up, and that clock's pretty imposing from the rear end. Even if you tart it up and the mechanisms are working, you don't see it anywhere in the city. You just totally lose sight of it.
Yeah, but it's still a clock, and people can. I mean, where else do you see a clock with the mechanism?
Sure.
Readily available to see. Yep. I mean, okay. I mean, I'm looking at it from an engineer's point of view.
Yeah.
But I mean, like looking at these things. So, but other people walk past there, and they also stop and look. Now, you know, there's been comment made that there's not many people in Wagner Place. On a nice day, you often see a lot of people sitting around there. You see young people sitting on the planter edges. They're having their lunches there, or you know, whatever they bought from the pizza or the night and day over the road, wherever else they bought it from. They're sitting out there in the sun, watching, you know, having their meals, having their food. So people do use it. Now, you know, if you take away those columns again, they're actually a point for people to, I won't say hide behind, but they're there for people to know that this is where you're going to cross D Street. And I mean, they look fine. I got a friend who absolutely hates them. That's beside the point. I mean, yeah, I'm sure that's pretty much a common thing with people around town. Some will love it, some will hate them. But I think they're good.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Tom.
Hi. Your written submission emphasised the issue of the wind funnelling.
Yes.
But you never mentioned it so much in your. So I just wonder if you have you got some experience of that? I mean, are you been here a long time?
Well, I have been for a long time as well.
Right.
I remember when the city library was it went on fire and was knocked down. But again, I mean, it's it was I guess it was always obviously a wind tunnel coming through there, wind effect coming through there. But we've changed that now with Wagner Place. Now, okay, Air Street does still get very windy. Let's not argue with that. But I mean, it's Wagner Place actually does break up some of the wind. I mean, when you get when you get a wind coming up through into a narrow area, it funnels it, and it actually increases the speed of the wind. If you get something to break it up a bit, then it helps.
So my question was really, in your experience, it helped. In your experience, it helped. Wagner Place helped the one situation.
But quite honestly, I can't remember what it was like before the Wagner Place was there. I mean, I just know, I was a pneumatics engineer, so I know about forcing air through narrow areas. I mean, I guess it was always windy, but we've moved on since those days, and we put some into shelter a bit. Why was Wagner Place completely closed off? It was closed off to try and make it a more user-friendly area.
Thank you. Leslie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Funnily enough, Councillor Campbell asked my question about the wind tunnel. Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Absolutely done then. Thank you for your submission.
Thank you.
John, wherever you are.
Hi. Worship the Mayor, councillors. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is John McCullough. Most of you probably know me, I've been around town for quite a long time. Been involved with quite a lot of projects in town. My submission is quite simple, really.
John, can you just use the microphone? Just for the people that are online.
Yeah, okay. I was in the 90s, I was a member of the Inner City Steering Committee, design team, which consisted of McCullough Architects, McDowell Architects, Christchurch City Council Traffic Engineering Division and Landscaping Department, and we're working with the City Council under the management of the City Engineer then Alan Bellinger. I sort of read in your proposals for Esk Street that the stone pillars at the intersection of Esk and D have not been incorporated in any of the proposed options and may be demolished. And I thought, those pillars were built as a result of a hell of a lot of hard work by a lot of people, a lot of consultation, planning, and the resource of our heritage design team, City Council, and our funders. And it's quite interesting that Bob found a minute of a meeting that we attended back in '98, and one comment was that the feature wall, which is the Celtic wall in the corner, Wachner Place upgrade, and the columns are all community costs, all funded by the community. So technically the community probably would own those if they funded and bought them, but they weren't that whole development wasn't direct cost of the ratepayer. And I think by memory, I think Transit New Zealand probably contributed a fair bit of money into the intersection and the columns as well, I think, but I'm not sure how much. So they weren't, and at the same time we've got an information and consultation process chart of what was happening, the process we went through, the number of meetings we had, the number of discussions, presentations, etc. at the time. So they weren't just sort of suddenly appeared. The reason given for their removal, I only got one small comment in the planner's report, that was this the primary reason why they were positioned there in the first place. And in the first place, when we started, there's a 6-lane highway going through there, and I don't know if you remember Esk, the town in those days, there was car parks in the middle, and it was very, very traffic orientated. And our sort of challenge was to soften or make the crossing from Wachner Place, which at those stages hadn't been yet developed. I don't know if you know the story how Wachner Place came about. It came about through fires. The buildings were fired and demolished, and a bit of the building that belonged to the post office was incorporated, and we sort of inherited it rather than planned it. But trying to get a very positive connection between Wachner Place and the new redeveloped Esk Street, with giving the pedestrian the right of way. So we looked at lots of options, and a lot of places in Europe and places use structures to calm traffic and give pedestrians predominance. So that was a major concept behind the columns originally, was to, when the pedestrian turned up, they didn't feel like they were crossing a 6-lane state highway, which what it was prior there. If you notice, you cross 2 lanes, have a spell, 2 lanes, and that was done very deliberately. The overlying approach of the inner city redevelopment was to recognise our heritage. We're trying to remind people that they do have a Celtic and Scottish heritage. And at the same time, the Maori was also very much a part of the heritage from New Zealand.
And this approach was established with a weekly column in the Southland Times right through the construction project. So every week we had a report on about where we're doing, what we're doing, how we're doing it, and there's a lot of interest in that. The pillars are very much a part of who we are, I think, and means of identifying the place. So when you see the pillars, you know you're in the centre of town. The best example of Invercargill, I think, is the first church tower. I mean, the first church tower is superb, and you can see it from a long way away, and it's quite dominant. And as example, pillars, columns, towers, monuments, standing stones, obelisks, all over the world act as cultural symbols and place markers. So Invercargill is also a city that's built on flat ground, and visually, vertical structures add character, add dimension to the landscape. The precast concrete wall on the corner was built as a means to provide some shelter and close the fourth corner of the intersection. I don't know if you remember, it used to be another bank building there. Invercargill Chambers, I think it was called. Got demolished, or got demolished or went up in fire. But anyway, so it was designed to like fill the fourth section of fourth corner of the intersection around the monument, because there's three historic buildings on the other three corners. So they were quite deliberate. And then and we had cultural symbolism embedded into the wall. You know, we put the Celtic cross, we put the whale's tail and the ziggurat, and the signs of different Maori carvings, and a thing on the bottom which represents movement of the tide and the sea. In a very similar way to all our predecessors carved cultural symbols into stone structures, obelisks all over the world. You know. I think it's important to understand that, you know, with urban design, urban developments from the past, and to incorporate them into the future. Now, we went to an awful lot of trouble to establish some very critical elements, researched them well, consulted well, and then we find that sort of suddenly they're just going to be removed. And we thought, you know, why? We think it's important to keep things to grow our heritage. You know, we've kept the water tower, we've kept the civic theatre, we've kept a lot of historic buildings and things in Invercargill. So basically, I can really see no reasons in the proposals to demolish the pillars, and I think they should be celebrated and incorporated into our future and become a permanent part of our urban landscape. I've also said I support the submission by Bob principle with what we're talking about with the development of the place. So I mean, I consider it important to provide a sheltered access to the new hotel in the exposed location, and I would support, you know, traffic movements through the S Street West, similar to what's been developed in the new S Street more, you know, with the quiet movement of traffic and slow and not too, you know, the roading and the pedestrians sort of quite integrated. Yeah. Yep. The inner city development actually won an architectural award and received very positive comments from the architect Sir Ian Athfield, who was down here on the jury at the time, about the relationship of the pillars to the general landscape. So, thank you.
Just one quick question for me, John. I didn't pick up which option you preferred.
I'm having a bus coming in from the south.
Yep.
In a quiet way, in the same way as you've done in Esk Street.
Yep.
But I think would be acceptable. Now, talk to Ross Herrod, he was the traffic engineer from Christchurch who did this thing. They've got a similar situation in Christchurch in the square. He's working quite successfully for quite a while. So having quiet movements, you know, through areas, I don't think the end of the world. And I also think like the clock tower can remain, but you demolish everything on each side of it. So the clock tower just sits in the middle. We have an issue with wind, of course, but you know, we can't have it both ways. I mean, you either have movement or you're going to have wind, and probably Wagner Place as an event centre is probably not the preferred option. I think it's more place people move through it. Yep. You know, restaurants and tables on footpaths and things like that, and it's sort of just a nice, good urban space, not dissimilar to what you've already established across in Essex Street, which was sort of an extension of what we did 25 years ago, really. So,
thanks for that, Rangi.
Thanks, Chair. Hi, John, and it's great that you're here because my question's about the original, people who were involved 25 years ago. Now, my question is, I'm looking at an aerial map of Wokna Place, looking down. What consideration at the time was given to the buildings west of Wokna Place that were going to suddenly have this, from their side, a wall between them and the rest of the city? Were they, did council go through submissions and ask, I think I counted 9 building owners who all of a sudden used to be connected to the city and no longer. So what was talked about at the time for the rest of those people?
I think if I remember correctly, I don't think the Menzies building was a particularly fully...
You got the Menzies on one side and then there's a whole row of them.
It's the old South and Frozen Meat.
Yeah.
I don't think they were occupied, or they were occupied, they were pure office buildings.
So were they just said, we'll forget about them, or what was, I just
They would have been consulted, I mean,
yeah.
We go through the notes because we consulted everybody.
Yeah, I just weary that, we're looking at something quite dramatic here that affects people.
Yeah.
But back at that time,
I don't think the traffic flow and the urban interaction from the buildings on the north side there, I don't think was predominant as probably what they would have been.
Okay.
Because I think the South and Frozen Meat had their head office in there. There was McKillop's
Lombard House
in there, I think, and there were sort of buildings that were sort of you park your car at the front and.
Because it soon, I mean, as far as my age, well, I'm not that young, but it got quite empty quite quick.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
And it's been empty for a long time.
Yeah. No, that's thanks,
Leslie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. John, when do you think the story of the pillars got forgotten?
Got what?
Forgotten.
Very
few people seem to know the history of those pillars.
Well, I think at the time we, it was published, but then they were just built, and people probably just accept them as a part of the urban landscape. I mean, even all the street lights went through quite a lot of development at the time because people were sort of running back to the historic, and those shapes on the front were the shape of the old original light poles that were in town. And the yachting bit, because a yachtsman, and we had a lot of trouble. We still wanted the Christmas decoration wires to go across, and in the old days they were sort of slung off buildings and they were loose and pulling brackets out. So there were sort of the whole process that went through at the time. But I don't know about the story. It's a bit like the Celtic Wall. I mean, it's there, but whether people actually talk about it or just accept it for what it is.
So you've obviously got a connection with them and know the story well, but do you feel that there is a general level of affection for those pillars in Invercargill?
Oh, I think there's been quite a lot of response lately in the social media. I understand the Southern Tribute run a poll and got quite a positive response, about 75%, I think, from their cross section. So probably one of those things that people just take for granted, and because they work, they're just a passive element that softens that connection between Wokna Place and Essex Street. That's what it really, that's what. And then when you design something, you sort of look at a bit of connection to your past, a bit of connection to the future. Then also provides an architectural vertical element because when you see them, they're quite predominant in the street.
Thank you.
Yes, kia ora. John, when you worked on the other part, which was the Celtic panels, we've been talking mostly about what's going to happen about traffic into the distinction and all those sorts of things. But as part of the whole cultural narrative that's going on within the inner city, we've been looking at, we as an iwi have been looking at where we locate the Tauraka Waka story, which is both the landing place for our canoe, our waka, and those of the later sailing ships. And the nearest place to that we have sort of available is between where the Celtic panels are and Wagner Place, because Kmart occupies the south bank of the Otapuni, and there's buildings on the other side. So when you were talking about all of that, was there reference to that being a meeting place of cultures, or because that would be Paddy and George Teo and those ones, yeah.
No, didn't actually. I don't recall a discussion of position of the Waka as a position. No.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, John, for your submission. Yes, I was on the Inner City Steering Committee with you and Jeff Pearcey and David Carter. The funding from, I just quite pick up what you said, but the funding for 100,000 for the pillars come from the Community Trust of Southland. It was a gift from them to the city. And I said earlier to an earlier submitter, how would you like tubular lighting, LED lighting across the top, like promoting large events like Easter, Christmas, that type of thing? Like being an architect, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I know at one stage we had gas flames on the top of the pillars.
Yes.
One concept. No, I think LED is something which is a recent innovation, which can be used to quite a lot of advantage. I mean, some of the buildings in Auckland are looking quite superb with lighting, even though they've got to choose the right colour, of course. So, you know, yeah, there's an opportunity to
Well, there's something there for us to do something with them and do it the correct way to make it stand out. Like we are the city of water and light, of course. One other thing, the price tag on this Wagner Place, 16 million. That seems a hell of a lot of money to me. Now, just putting that into context, that's a quarter of the price that the ILT paid to build the Langlands Hotel. It just does not stack up. Did someone put a decimal point in the wrong place somewhere, Drew? Or is the place going to have gold-plated tiles or crystal chandeliers? I don't know. It sounds a heck of a lot of money, and you've done a lot of big buildings in your career as an architect. What's your thoughts on the price tag?
It does sound a lot. But if you have a look, say, what you've done at Esk Street, I mean, I was just looking at our original budget. I think we were 4 million, I think. And we did the original redevelopment of Esk Street. We did the whole street for about 4. That was 20 years ago. But the finishes and surfaces are quite expensive. And, you know, when we decided to pave the outside of the stadium, we decided rather than doing a lab, we just used one big area of, I mean, I think we had imported Chinese marble, near marble, I think it is, outside the stadium. But that was considered, you know, quite expensive compared to what we have done before. But that was quite. But I think the finishes in Esk Street, the concrete and all the marble, are reasonably expensive finishes. So it doesn't take too long for all that to add up. But it does sound a lot.
Yeah.
11 million. I'm sure we could do it. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? There being none. John, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay. June, welcome.
Do tell me if I'm talking too loud. Is that about right?
Long as you speak well into that microphone,
Okay, yes.
with a quiet voice.
Good afternoon, Mayor and councillors. Ko June Trata Aho no Waihopai, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you for this opportunity to voice my concerns. I want to put forward a possible scenario in the future. Fast forward to a possible scenario. A couple of travellers step out of Distinction Hotel to explore Invercargill. Let's find the community square. 10 minutes later, they are still looking for one. They ask a passerby, "Oh no, we don't have one." "Oh well, let's find the information centre." "Oh, we don't have one." "Okay, So where are the central public restrooms, please? Ah, they disappeared too. Let's get out of this wind. It is so strong and so hot, and there are no big trees for shade. That was a possible future scenario. So back to the present. At the moment, we are very fortunate that, like Dunedin and Christchurch, we have a significant central open space. It has wind shelter and sunshade, adjoining restaurants, and space to have food trucks, musicians, protests, and celebrations. This space offers a sense of community. Or are we going to be left with just shops and streets, and buses arriving randomly through our space? A city with no heart and no soul? Wagner Place has public toilets and a lounge, a changing room for parents of young children, and a shower that is used by all sectors of our community. Wagner Place is situated almost equally between the warehouse, Kmart, and Invercargill Central. It gives a focus and unifies our urban planning, and has historical meaning owing to Mrs. Wagner's gift to the city. We have a responsibility to care for this public gathering and recreation space, to protect and enhance it. There has been significant pressure from commercial interests, including time pressure, but we have alternative options that allow us to keep buses out of Wagner Place, options 2 or 3. If you allow buses through Wagner Place, future councillors and residents may shake their heads and wonder why you didn't value and protect this significant open space. Please do not throw away our community space. Do not throw it under the buses.
So, June, one quick question for you. If we come to a position where we don't allow any transport access through Wagner Place, what would we do to Wagner Place? Because we hear quite a few speakers say we want to retain the clock or the sheltering effect of the clock. But when you look at that area, that shelter area from the other side where the hotel's going to be, it's not very welcoming for people wanting to get out and explore the city, is it?
Yes, perhaps, but I think that Wagner Place is situated between the ILT, between the Quest, between Distinction,
Yep.
maybe the Railway Hotel, between these 4 hotels. Now, guests do want, they've been on the bus for hours, surely they want somewhere to go outside, not necessarily under a roof. They need somewhere to go and just sit and enjoy outside, being outside with sun and shade. And I do accept what you were saying, but I think the value of that space, that if we lose it, we've lost it, especially if there is buses through it. And I know that there are suggestions of perhaps another space somewhere else, but realistically, how far away down the track would that be? And there's no guarantee that we would get that. So I think that maybe we just need to think about enhancing Wagner Place. And I'm sure you've had lots of suggestions today about doing that. And maybe perhaps on the other side, as you say, somehow that can be enhanced, that it's more attractive.
Cool.
And people maybe on that side, whether somehow it can be advertised that there is this wonderful Wagner Place on the other side.
Thank you. Questions, Leslie?
Thank you. June, if we went with your preferred option, how do the buses get to the new hotel?
11th Street.
So coming in from both the airport and Queenstown?
I guess this whole exercise really is prioritising what's important, isn't it? Like, I guess there is difficulty on where the buses come, and maybe they do have to do a bit of a detour. But then balancing it up against losing this open space, we've lost that. That's really, really important. You know, it's very easy to fill our streets and spaces up with things and buildings, and like open space is open space. It's getting harder to come by. It's disappearing.
Can I ask you to comment on the wind tunnel effect that quite a few submitters have pointed out? If we were to remove the glass panels and the clock.
I think it'd be wonderful if you kept it. I think, as I said at the beginning, I think people coming out of Distinction Hotel, if that's all taken away, they're going to be hit by the wind. And, you know, we do have wind, you know, a third of the year or half the year. So it's not really very inviting if they just see this East Street full of winds and not much else. At least if they've got somewhere they can go, and you know, maybe the restrooms, I think it's really important the restrooms are retained, and maybe they can be renovated or made a bit more upmarket, maybe, perhaps, I don't know. But I think they'd be really good to retain them as well.
Thank you.
Trish?
No, sorry.
Oh, no. Honey?
With Living Street coming, you know, if a bus was coming to go in, do you think it going in alongside the hotel might work?
Coming from the north,
yeah.
Yes.
Because it would just
Yes.
tuck in. Do you think
Yes.
that would be a
Yes, and you know, well, there is going to be a car park there, so perhaps there can be some kind of manoeuvre that the buses are able to make using the car park as well. Like, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I just don't want buses through Wagner Place.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Jean.
Thank you.
Thank you for your submission.
Thanks, Jane.
Do we have Thelma?
Thelma is here.
Okay.
I think Kate has just gone to get her.
Okay. Just waiting for the last submitter.
And somewhere in the agenda, I'll alert the councillors to a small error in the agenda. The councillors to so, councillors, for those of you who have been following along the speaker's written submission, some of you may note the error that is coming up. Thelma Buck's submission does not marry up with the submission that is showing there as being from the Chamber of Commerce. You can find Thelma Buck's submission at page 279 of Board Books or on submission 144. So my apologies for that. I'm not quite sure how we've managed to get to that submission so badly wrong, but we have located it and you can find it to read, and Thelma should be here shortly.
Oh, yeah, here it is,
279.
279.
279.
Yeah. So if you go, you just type in down the bottom.
Well, it'll become because it's going to become car park. Accommodation for staff.
Liz Harrison.
That's done already. So that's the higher, and that's a different building. So basically, you've just got that. If that could all be painted, this could all be.
Right, for a night in the pub.
Submission. Was it page 279?
Everybody seems to forget that, don't they?
Where the pages?
Where's Thelma's submission?
Yeah.
279.
Yes, good.
Where is it? 279, where's that?
There we go.
Page 279.
Slide.
Well, we'll just go to a, we'll go Google it.
You get the bulk maker at what yours is probably doing about ridiculous. Everything costs $1 million. It's less than $1 million. And that's all gone.
Yeah, so I mean, we could do some really quite cool things that are not expensive, but it's actually same as in Palmerston.
I'm going to hurry up.
Keep going.
Keep going. Keep going.
So that's all gone.
Yeah, that's gone.
Right, that's all gone. This would all be paid. So close to you entrance to the hotel. So you know, I think it looks up. And I'm just, if you paint it,
That's a very good playground.
you walk out and it's just, you know, buildings are in a
Very good playground. It's really amazing.
miles better than this.
Sure, people can't afford all these screen things. Same thing.
Yeah.
It needed to be.
Yeah, there's different things you can do, but I don't think there's anything wrong with the chair itself.
That's what we're talking about. Pretty low. Which actually just colouring. Brush the wall.
Everybody ever was.
Yeah.
Everybody.
That was meant to be the retail, as we were retail. They were going to build a fund. They were going to build a one of the big playgrounds.
She was the one that said to me, what do you
name?
Yeah,
And you know, you go to reality and kids are.
Because the people that are paying to do these things are actually older than this generation, not the young ones.
Yes.
So they're going to see that in a lot of plot. They're going to, and the problem is with the lost to be there, it's blank. You know, it's like, we should know that this clock is called.
Speak up.
It's like, it's a history then. In 1842,
The difficulty with us is what we sell
various watchmaker and another one. There's so much history. Actually, yeah, it's and the story behind how it was located there is actually quite, yeah, it's uplifting. So I can't see more events there as I do.
Yes, unfortunately.
That's what I didn't
Yeah, no, there's one in Christchurch.
Once you know the history, you want to keep it. No.
And it's not in the movie theatre in Queenstown too. You got the movie theatre in the mall. You go there.
Yeah, no, you do.
Like that thing can be.
Sorry, I was just going to bemoan the fact that everyone wants to get an image.
You know, it's like using the space smartly.
Okay, team. So we've got Thelma online who's zooming in. Can't make it today physically. Don't worry about the hair, Thelma. Can you hear me?
I can speak now.
Yeah, speak a bit louder. Can you hear me?
Can everybody hear us?
Yes.
Voting on something.
Very good. No, we're just trying to identify whether we can hear you.
Just wave it up.
Right.
They haven't got their speaker turned up.
Have they got us on mute?
You know, when I left Pete years ago, I never realised what it was going to be like when I was by myself.
Oh God, turn the volume off.
I think they're working on hearing us.
Thelma, we can hear what you're saying. We can hear you. Peter Kett speaking. Can you hear us?
I've got to go somewhere else.
Yes,
I
Peter.
don't think he would have realised it either, Thelma. No, he doesn't.
We can hear you.
She can't hear you.
Well, we can.
The crisis with hay.
Just wave at us so she knows.
279.
There she goes. Can you hear us now?
Hello, am I on?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you, Thelma.
When I was on the trust, Gary Muir used to call me. Or was it when it was the guys from the South and Building Society used to call me Chook.
This is a. Yes, I'm going for meeting.
I've got no red, and I used to take my shoes off under the chair so nobody could see them. And Gary used to cut them away. Only filmed them with all sorts of
Somebody
things.
does that too.
Yeah. You lose them.
They can hear us,
No,
but we
Junky's
can't
not
hear
here
them.
Yeah.
No.
In the building.
No.
I think they heard all that.
Is the lift not possible?
I would have thought that she got pins and needles.
Oh, he's Rhiannon. We can't hear you.
Oh, she's on the ground floor.
She's
I think that's
in
Rhiannon.
she's in the meeting room on the ground.
Did you hear Chook, did you?
Well, they've tried.
Maybe not.
What's that, Rhiannon?
So I can talk.
Yes, go ahead.
We've got two Rhiannons.
Good afternoon.
It's fine. We can hear you,
Thelma
Thelma.
Buck speaking.
But she can't hear us. at this stage.
Can I talk to the council on Wapna Place?
Nobby, she can probably see you clearest. You might wanna
They can hear
nod.
me, right. I'm a big fan of Wapna Place. I've been around Invercargill. It was my birthday just a few days ago, and I was 79. And I've been in Invercargill since I was 6 years old. I got to know most of the people here and most of the things that were happening, and know most of the Maoris and the Pākehās that are out in the streets now. My Wapna Place submission is that Mrs. Paul and Mrs. Wapna were friends, and the day that they opened Wapna Place, Mrs. Paul gave me a ring at my shop and said, could I come down? Mrs. Wapna was there, but it was pouring with rain and it was so windy, and I had a lot of customers in, so I couldn't. But I did go after work that night and kept in touch. The first time I saw it used was when it was used by a craft group about a month later, and it, with the way it was, it's now got an extra piece on the back of it to stop the wind coming through. It is just a wind tunnel. The wind just rushes through, and it is terrible. The people were losing all their craft stuff all around the thing. They never came back again. And then a few weeks later, I asked Eve Paul if we could have the New Year's Eve party there. And she said to me, Thelma, I'm not going to have the police coming halfway through the night saying there's a riot at Wapna Place. No, you can't. So we waited again until me Shadbolt came And we asked him, and he said, certainly. We looked after it, we washed it, we cleaned it, we made sure everything was perfect when we went in and when we came out, but it was still a wind tanner, quite bad at the wind. And I fear for whoever wants to take the hole out where the clock is and put buses in there, that is going to absolutely wreck all the work that's been done in Esk Street. It's because the wind just screams through there. And twice or three times I read in the paper in the Times that you could no longer walk past their place because of the wind as well. And well, that's now gone, but it still means that it's going to be very windy. There is a lot of things that could be done with Wapna Place. The clock is come back from the grand ages. My brother, who worked for Bond Contracting, worked on that clock for years, and he's retired now. And I'm sure if you wanted the clock to go again, you could ring him up, and I'm sure he'd come down for Nixon and get it going for you, because it only ever stopped after the man from the railway station hotel wanted it closed down because it was annoying his customers. You cannot shift stuff onto other people when money has been given to you. It should be it should stay, because it's just like if I wanted to leave some money to the council now, I would hope that in years to come, if there was enough, that it could be used. But in Mrs. Wapner's place, you've decided, or somebody's decided, that her place needs to go, which is very poor. We could work on Wapner Place and do a lot with it. We've been paying for it for years, and I believe it's not his to say, it's not yours to say, it's the ratepayers who say, is this place going? And I don't really think that the ratepayers have really got something through the mailbox or with their letters, with their rates, asking or doing the things that some of these things that you have brought up that you want to do. It's got to be the ratepayers, because when you're gone and dead and buried like me, let the ratepayers know what they're in for so they can carry on with it. I think Wapner Place could be an asset. It is windy, it'll always be windy. You only have to stand over by the railway station and see exactly what happens. The man who's bought the Menzies building must have known this before he bought it. And if he didn't, well, I'm not sure why, but I don't want to see Mrs. Wapner with no family and nobody here to support her now, her donation go to nowhere. Because if that happens, when the donations come in, when they do occasionally come in, the people leave things to the council, well, to me it's just a waste of time, because there's nobody there that really cares enough to let it stay there. If you want to use it later on, well, just kick them out and start with something else. And I don't think that's fair. Mrs. Wapner was so happy the day that we went to Vickery Court and took her out. She was 103 at that stage, and we were allowed her out for an hour. We brought her into town. We drove up onto Wapner Place. And the first thing she said, "Where's my plaque gone?" Because the Wapner Place had just been painted and they hadn't put back Wapner Place. I spoke to Mr. Pagan, and he had it up in a few days. But she really loved that place, and she really wanted it for the kids and what have you. And when we had our 2000 year with the Wapner Place thing, we had the millennium. We had thousands of people there. We had nowhere to to have the fireworks, and as I was on the trust with the licensing trust, I talked to Gary Muir, who went in the end because the people wouldn't let us use the Peony Creek, but we used the Peony Creek and put boards up around the New World, the old RSA thing that they had there, and it was absolutely a thing. And of course, it was also the year of the Y2K bug thing, and the licensing trust, I don't know where they went, but I know the City Council went onto the roof of the City Council, half them, and they were there to, if anything broke down, and they watched the fireworks. I know some of them then came down and went on the bus to Bluff and watched the fireworks down there. We don't get an awful lot of money spent on the ratepayers, but there was miles and miles and miles of kids there, and there were all sorts of kids in prams, kids and everything. We also had the road closed off like we usually do every year. We've never asked the licensing, never asked the council for any money at all, and the money that we needed to run it came from donations from the licensing trust. And I would, every Christmas for about two and a half months, I would make Christmas cakes, and we used to raffle them, and I'd make about 30, and we'd have about 30 raffles that paid for everything. And then in the year of the 2000, the money was already promised to another man who was going to do several other things, and we happened to go to the annual general meeting of the licensing trust, and it was decided then that that the money would come to us instead, and we spent every little bit that was, we felt we needed it. Some of the people came to breakfast. We had breakfast at the Kelvin Hotel at 6 o'clock in the morning to race in the day, and the dining room was full. We never borrowed a cent off anybody. We never loaned anybody any or anything. And even today, I have a little smile when I come into town at Christmas time, because there's two beautiful plastic yellow signs that usually advertising something in Clyde Street or down in Tay Street. I paid for those signs. They cost me about $500 and something, and I loaned them to somebody who never gave them back to me. And it looks like now they've finished up at the council, so I might send you a bill for them. But they were for the New Year's Eve party. Nobby, yep. I'm expecting you to look after Mrs. Noble, Mrs. and eat Paul's wishes, and to leave that there, and maybe we could do some private fundraising to finish it off properly. Please do not let it go down. It'd be a real shame. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. Unfortunately, technology-wise, we've got no way to hear the councillors, so they've asked me to extend my their thanks for your submission and your time for coming in today. If we've got any follow-up questions,
they can ring me.
Yeah. Get the screen off.
It won't be a short phone call.
Can we ring her?
No idea how the telephone calls gone.
You've been told.
We've got some.
You've been spoken to.
Yes. Name Buck has spoken. All right, so that's all done.
No, we've just got to receive the report and the recommendations.
Right. So, as a final matter, we just got to receive the report and the.
I'll move that.
Thank you.
Second.
Barry, thank you. Any suggestions or discussions around those? None. Warn you out for the day. Excellent. All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried.
What are we voting for?
And we're done.
Thank you.
What?
What are we voting for?
You didn't know what you're voting for?
Receiving the
You can ask Leslie or
What's up on the screen?
keep up with it, Tom. Come on.
Receiving the report, receiving the submissions.
Too late. It's already been carried unanimously. You put your hand up for a question and it's become a yes vote.
Thanks, Gil. The meeting's over.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You just